Chapter 1167. Coach, I'd like to exchange for a trench machine. I'd like to play Dota. As Qin Guang was complaining, Peasant came up to him mysteriously and said, Mr. Dang, I don't lack many reward points to exchange for the second awakening. Is there any problem with my well-prepared strategy? Peasant looked enviously into the distance. The magician who exchanged for the poker cards was complaining as he fiddled with his weapon, the poker cards. As he activated his ability, 54 cards swirled in the air and scattered in all directions. He was furious. AI, these D*Mn cockroaches are deceiving me. Why didn't you say so earlier? With my ability I can even become a mister. Shut up. Are you as angry as me? A young lad's body flashed and a flamethrower appeared on his back. He wasn't spouting nonsense. With the power of the flamethrower, it was effective against cockroaches. Peasant was envious of the equipment that the others exchanged for, but the others were envious of her 900 reward points. However, there was no point in regretting it. Qin Guang's 7,300 points were more eye-catching than hers. D*M Lord Yuting, we've been tricked by this massacre mission. Now, those mortals are becoming stronger and stronger, but our strength has not improved at all. The situation isn't looking good. Don't worry, the mortals aren't a threat. They're getting stronger because they're too weak. Their so-called awakening is meaningless to us. Vasani asked bewilderedly, how can that be? Their abilities are interesting. I really want to snatch that guy's poker cards. Oh no, I want to use forceful means to get them. Only mortals need to awaken. We're gods and we have innate abilities. We don't need to enjoy the so-called awakening. What does it mean to strengthen our abilities? What conditions do we have to achieve to use it? Yuting thought for a while and said, in my opinion, the mortals are awakening and we are recovering. Recovering? That's right. Recover the abilities that we originally possessed, and let the shackles that were placed on us gradually loosen. I really don't know which great being created this game. Can even suppress the power of my immortal emperor realm. I can even sense that this is far from the limit of this world. Vesine nodded. That makes sense. As expected of Lord Yuting. Don't flatter me. I miscalculated in the second stage of the massacre mission. But it's not too late for us to wake up to this realization. It's just that it's a little frustrating that we can't steal monsters from mortals. I've fought with Dangwu once before. The current him is indeed stronger than us in this world. Julie's death was not unjust. He only had himself to blame. He deserved this outcome. Dangwu is a natural-born fighter. Even in such an environment he can still maintain such a strong fighting spirit. He won't even let go of such a weak creature. That's right, he must be plotting something. His aura hasn't changed at all since he entered this world. Up until now he hasn't used those reward points at all. There's something fishy going on here. At this moment Qin Guang, who was being envied by everyone, didn't feel very happy. I'm not a goddamn natural-born fighter. I'm just bragging and I can only brace myself. I'm just a dead duck with a dead mouth. I've already bragged to the girls. These cockroaches are very powerful, so how can I not do it myself? You guys see that I have a lot of reward points and look like I'm very rich. You guys think that I'm saving up for an ultimate move and want to exchange for a powerful treasure in one go. In fact, I just can't spend it. All players please pay attention. Quest May 3rd begin at any time. Quest hint. Survive the attacks of the infected orc laborers and resist the invasion of evil energy. Monster card. Infected orc laborer. Because of Guardian Mediva's betrayal, the eternal peace has been broken. Under Ghoul Dan's leadership, the orcs passed through the dark portal and appeared on the continent of Azeroth. Among these orcs, only a few orcs like the Frostwolf clan remained pure. Most of the orcs had been infected with evil energy and turned into green-skinned monsters. The orcs were already very strong, and after being infected with evil energy, they gained even more terrifying strength. Even an orc laborer is a laborer of immense strength. Before he knew it, the hint for the third quest had finally arrived. Compared to the previous two quests, the third quest's prompt gave off the feeling that the person was not a good person. First of all, unlike the previous two quests which gave a clear time for arrival, this unlucky third quest said that it could begin at any time. This was a feeling that Qin Guang was very familiar with. Then it did not ask anyone to kill all the orc laborers, only to let everyone survive. Although everyone knew that they had to be killed, this hint gave people a different feeling. Moreover, evil energy sounded very scary. It also revealed that when the orcs were killed, the evil energy in the orc laborers' bodies would leak out and infect others like a contagious disease. Also, according to the experience from the first quest, the Vengeful Spirits monster card said that it was an agility-type phantom beast, but its attack power was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Now the unlucky orc laborers had all sorts of extremely strong and terrifying strength from the start, so it was definitely a strength-type monster. What the heck? The developer of the lousy massacre mission had a different judgment of strength compared to ordinary people. Either the massacre mission had no knowledge of strength, or the lousy game's understanding of strength was too strong. It was like an adult and a child holding the same thing. The adult felt it was easy, but the child felt it was strenuous. This phenomenon was called misalignment of perception. Mr. Dang, the third quest looks very scary. Should I buy the hourglass? Peasant seemed to have no opinion, but she was very smart. Qin Guang was a trustworthy person. He was a veteran massacre mission gamer. She felt that asking for Qin Guang's opinion would help her avoid unnecessary detours. It was a pity that she had underestimated Qin Guang's experience and asked the wrong person. Don't panic. Weapons and equipment are external objects. The most important thing is to awaken one's own abilities. Can you exchange for the hourglass at any time? Yes, at any time. Then you should observe for a while. You have to make a clear judgment of the situation. When the situation is so bad that you can't protect yourself without using the hourglass, it won't be too late to exchange for the hourglass. What kind of situation is considered bad? What kind of situation is unable to protect yourself? Think about it carefully. Qin Guang and Peasant chatted for a long time and Peasant was bewildered. Ultimately, Qin Guang didn't say anything. While the two of them were chatting, streams of light suddenly rotated, and dozens of huge figures at least 5 meters tall appeared in the arena area of the ancient Roman Colosseum. At the same time, a prompt sounded in everyone's ears. The infected orc laborers are about to charge. Countdown. It was the familiar countdown. Qin Guang and Peasant were solemn as they prepared for battle. 2, 1, 0. As the unlucky countdown came to an abrupt end, the orc silhouettes that were still bright a moment ago suddenly dimmed, and what appeared in front of everyone were dozens of gigantic creatures scattered around the arena like starfall. The oily green skin looked a little bewitching. It flickered with a dense glimmer, like a firefly in the night sky. The orc laborers weren't cute. Their naked bodies were covered with blood vessels and tendons. Their muscles looked like rocks, and they were a few times stronger than the Hercules that had died at the hands of Qin Guang. They looked like they were 3D printed from the same mold. They looked ferocious, and they had fangs that were as thick as arm bones on their lower jaws. Then they didn't give the gamers any time to breathe. With a deep roar, the infected orc laborers charged at the nearest gamers like a tank. Then, without giving the players any time to catch their breath, they let out a deep roar, and the infected orc laborers launched a tank-like death charge at the nearest players at lightning speed. The eyes of these beastman laborers flickered with a blood-red radiance. They had entered the legendary berserk state from the start. With their huge bodies, the moment they started to move, their auras were extremely frightening. They were simply like slowly moving hills. This feeling of power was like the charge of the Gundam group. Even though the closest orc laborers to Qin Guang were tens of meters away, even Qin Guang felt that the imposing manner was unstoppable. The scene and imposing manner made Qin Guang think of a long-lost joke. 59 went down the mountain. So many 59 moves. I'm going down the mountain. Qin Guang cursed in his heart. What a scam. Does your countdown clock start from 2? If it wasn't for the fact that your movements were so slow that they looked like they were moving in slow motion, I would have been scared to death by you guys. Wait a minute. Why do these guys look slow in my eyes? Qin Guang squinted his eyes and looked at the approaching orc laborers calmly. He felt that these big guys would take at least 10 seconds to reach him. It was even slower than a junior high school student's 100-meter sprint. These guys look like they're moving in slow motion. Did I become stronger? Did my dynamic vision suddenly improve? Otherwise, with the imposing manner of the orc laborers' charge, there was no reason for it to look like they were moving in slow motion. That's right, that must be it. I knew it. I'm the master of the heavenly holy grail. How could I not take care of it? This stupid grail can read people's minds. It knows to secretly help me cheat and strengthen my abilities like a thief. I didn't even use any reward points. This feeling was quite good. It was just like when he was visiting relatives and friends during the New Year's Eve. His relatives and elders would pull him aside like thieves and then stuff 2 New Year's money into his hands. They would even instruct him, "You must hide it well. Don't let your parents take it. It's the New Year, buy whatever you like." Strange, these infected orc laborers are moving very slowly. Am I seeing things? I haven't even used my abilities. As Qin Guang was feeling smug, Peasant's bewildered voice came from beside him. What? Do you think they're moving slowly? Qin Guang was shocked as he asked. Another girl appeared beside him and said, "It doesn't look slow. It's really slow. Don't tell me that these orc laborers are just like silver spears, good to look at but useless?" Qin Guang asked, "Be honest. Is your job in the real world as a nightclub DJ?" The girl blushed and said, "No, I'm only the manager of Great Sword. I don't do that myself." Alright, you win." At this moment, Qin Guang felt his heart calm down. Why don't I test the abilities of the orc laborers first? Peasant was eager to try. After the second wave of roaches, she let down her guard. Moreover, the orcs were moving very slowly. Qin Guang waved his hand and said, "No, don't be anxious. I'll test them first." He spoke loudly for the benefit of Peasant and his companions. He was also reminding the other normal gamers of the game. But before he could finish his sentence, a huge black shadow suddenly flew in front of him, and the strong wind it caused even his scalp to feel cold. Then a loud sound was heard. The black shadow was pasted to the wall of the Colosseum. A flattened figure slid down from the wall like a pancake. He turned his head and looked fearfully in another direction. Everyone followed his gaze and saw a beastman laborer slowly retracting his right fist. His movement was really slow, but the strength behind it was quite shocking. Everyone was scared out of their wits. The monster's strength was ridiculous. Even the boxing coach, who was eager to give it a try, quietly retracted his feet. Qin Guang sucked in a breath of cold air and thought to himself, "It's time to prove this old man's ability." He walked towards the fell energy beastmen and said, "Everyone, don't panic. It's just that the divine race is very weak. The same thing can't happen to Agash." Then he flew away. While flying in the air, he thought that it was illogical. Wasn't normal strength just kinetic energy? Wasn't kinetic energy mass multiplied by the square of speed divided by 2? So why was the seemingly slow punch of the fell energy orc so terrifying? He had only tried to touch it with his palm and he was sent flying. My physics teacher isn't happy. Forget it. Don't get hit easily. Remember, don't make any physical contact. Otherwise, your bodies won't be able to withstand the impact. You'll be smashed into pieces. After returning to Peasant's side, Qin Guang said in shock. The ordinary gamers didn't need his reminder. They had already fled in an orderly manner. It wasn't that they were afraid. Even the legendary Mr. Dang and the Protoss were sent flying hundreds of meters by a single punch. Nobody dared to collide with them. This slaughter world's definition of power was indeed very problematic. Fortunately, the massacre mission's definition of agility was also problematic. The agility-type mythical beasts were cute, but the strength-type mythical beasts were as slow as snails to the gamers who had awakened their mythical beasts once. Though they couldn't defeat the orcs, the Colosseum had a diameter of 1 kilometer. There were only tens of orcs and they were relatively scattered. The gamers could run in circles to avoid them. As a result, such a spectacle appeared in the Colosseum of Rome. Dozens of slow-moving green-skinned guys roared angrily as they chased group after group of people to play Eagle Catches the Chicks in the circular arena. Although they were angry, they couldn't do anything about it. Chapter 1168. Just like that, more than half an hour passed. Even the players who had strengthened their physique after the awakening began to feel tired. Even though they were only jogging, they could not stop. But these foul orcs were still full of fighting spirit and momentum. Compared to when they first appeared, their speed did not change at all. At the same time, within this half an hour, no ordinary player dared to challenge the dignity of the orc laborers. It was not that they were afraid, but they were no match for them. Because when they were almost unable to restrain themselves and took the initiative to attack, the virtual Protoss was one step ahead of them. But the result was the same as before and they flew even further. Even the stronger Pantheon and Mr. Dang could not fight back. Faced with this situation, as long as one was not a fool, they would be able to make the right choice. In addition to physical contact, Those who had redeemed their weapons and equipment also took out their weapons to test the power of their weapons. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. The magician's poker cards could not even cut the skin of the orc laborers. Flamethrower was even more desperate. Facing the oncoming flames, this guy actually opened his mouth, took a deep breath and swallowed. Just as Flamethrower's face was as green as the fell orcs, this guy's chest swelled twice, and he actually spat out flames from his mouth. Not only that, this flame even had a faint green tint to it, and it came right at the face of Flamethrower, who was in a daze. Under everyone's horrified gaze, Flamethrower was not paying attention, and his whole body was wrapped in a strange green flame. Fortunately, this guy's reaction was fast enough to protect his face in time, and he rushed out of the flames. But just when everyone thought that he had successfully escaped, the green flames on his shoulders, waist, head, and other parts of his body when he rushed out suddenly became more vigorous. "There's something wrong with this will-the-wisp. It's absorbing my strength." Flamethrower screamed and then desperately slapped the parts of his body that were on fire. But it was to no avail. As he slapped, even his palms began to burn. "Save me! Save me!" No. Brother Spitfire's screams did not last long. In a short span of 20 to 30 seconds, under everyone's horrified gazes, Brother Spitfire, who was alive and kicking not long ago, turned into a pile of bones under the raging flames. His novice combat suit was unable to save his life from the demonic flame. In just 20 to 30 seconds, the light on his combat suit flashed like a flashing light, indicating that the energy of his combat suit was being consumed at an insane rate. At the same time, he was also using his reward points to recharge the combat suit in an attempt to preserve his life. However, all of this was futile. In the end, this pile of bones that was emitting green smoke crashed to the ground, and then completely broke down into even finer ions that disappeared into the air. Ase-Khan died. Reset. The merciless sound of the heavenly Holy Grail's notification rang in everyone's ears. Everyone could only calm down and continue running while being chased by the orc laborers. After everyone completed their awakening, the number of players decreased again. There were only 32 ordinary players left. Such a tragic scene not only shocked all the ordinary players, but even the virtual Protoss, who had nothing to do with them, secretly changed their expressions. The orc laborer had completely absorbed the raging flames of the flamethrower and even infused the demonic energy into it. At the cost of a human life, the gamers finally had a complete understanding of the demonic energy. After the second wave of magical beast cockroach baptism, the third wave of magical beast infected beastmen gave everyone an extremely profound lesson. If the Massacre Fantasy was a game created by the game developer, the CEO of the game company would have hung up the game developer to give him a good beating. The gamers didn't dare to retaliate. "Mr. Dang, we can't keep running like this. We have to do something. Otherwise, our stamina will be depleted," a lady from the peasant team said. One of the ladies in the peasant team said. He had the weakest stamina and was panting. She had the urge to drink a bottle of Red Bull, but she held it in. Qin Guang replied, "I'm thinking of a solution. The massacre mission can't be an unsolvable situation. Trust my judgment." "That's right, there must be a solution." Peasant encouraged him. Qin Guang was speechless. "Don't be so confident in me. How can I tell you that I'm just making things up?" "That's right. We have Mr. Dang." At this time, the Sonda coach who was passing by nearby also chimed in. Qin Guang silently turned his head and looked at him. "That's good. When you need me, you suck up to me. When you don't need me, you act like a wolf. A person like you won't survive more than 3 chapters in a novel. Scram. Don't you want me to brace myself and test the demonic energy? I'm not a 3-year-old child. I'm doing things without fail." Qin Guang countered peasant's attempt to goad him into action. Another half an hour passed and the previous girl finally had no choice but to drink a bottle of Red Bull. Although she still had a lot of reward points, it was only a matter of time before she ran out of reward points to replenish her stamina if the situation continued. This was not the worst part. Everyone gradually discovered that the air in the Colosseum was filled with a strange smell. It was a little sweet, but it was more of a fishy smell. When they looked at the farthest perimeter wall, they could see a faint green color. It was the dark energy of the orc laborers. After inhaling the dark energy, everyone's footsteps became heavier, and their stamina consumption increased. "Dang Wu, aren't you very powerful? Can you think of a solution?" On the other side of the virtual Protoss, Vasani took the initiative to strike up a conversation with Chen Guang. It was clear how delicate the situation was. Chen Guang turned his head and glanced at the god. He looked as if he didn't want to talk to her and turned his head away. But he knew that Wethany wouldn't speak without thinking. She had Yu Ting behind her. She must have been instructed by Yu Ting to speak. Yu Ting was probably conveying his intention to cooperate through her. Chen Guang's response was also interesting. He didn't reject her outright, nor did he nod. He just kept them in suspense. He didn't panic. He even wanted to laugh. Yu Ting's initiative to approach them meant that in this slaughtering world, the virtual gods weren't strong. Not only could they be killed by him, but they could also die in the mission. They just had a higher starting point than ordinary players. But now, with the first awakening of ordinary players, the gap between the two was narrowing. In essence, they were also players in this game, not bosses that fell from the sky. In a sense, he might be the boss that they might have to deal with. Chen Guang didn't know that he had already grasped the most important core element of this slaughtering world. So no matter what, he couldn't cooperate with them. He especially couldn't let them get their reward points from him. Besides, he wasn't really out of ideas. Although the dark energy was infectious, there was no reason for it to be more advanced than the talent of the Earth Burner. The Earth Burner, a top elemental creature, could devour the dark energy in the air, but he didn't do so. After seeing that Yu Ting was also sent flying, Chen Guang deliberately suppressed his talent. He wanted to force Yu Ting to use his trump card. Another 2 hours passed and the scene changed again. As the dark energy in the air became stronger, on average each player drank at least 2 bottles of Red Bull. But they didn't use their own reward points. Chen Guang used his reward points to give them for free. Anyway, he couldn't spend it. He still had more than 9,000 points, so he might as well be Lei Feng. There was also good news. He found that the virtual Protoss had also begun to drink Red Bull. Although they lasted longer than ordinary players, it showed that their stamina was limited. I'm sorry, but this old man got a huge harvest of 7,000 points in the second wave. This old man alone has nearly 10,000 points. The first wave of vengeful spirits provided a total of nearly 10,000 points, and the second wave of cockroaches provided exactly 10,000 points. Chen Guang alone accounted for nearly half of the total number of reward points. About the virtual Protoss accounted for the remaining 60%, and the ordinary players accounted for the other 40%. It seems that my little brothers and I can last a little longer than you guys. Yuding lad, hurry up and show me what you're capable of. Don't try to act mysterious with me. Here are 5 bottles. We still have to continue. As Chen Guang spoke, he casually tossed 5 bottles of Red Bull to the coach. He had purposely placed that fellow last. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dang. The boxing coach continued to run and escape while shedding tears of gratitude. Chen Guang looked at his expression and felt that he was really going further and further down the path of an old NPC grandpa. Perhaps for them, this was the description of the side mission outside of the main mission, the killing mission. Survive for 3 hours under the attack of the 3rd wave of Phantom Beast. Wait for the novice mentor, the elderly warrior sage at noon, to give you 5 bottles of Red Bull to recover your stamina. Chen Guang felt a little stifled. Just as he was thinking about this, there was a violent vibration in the distance. He turned around in shock and then grinned. He looked at Yu Ting, who was wrapped in dazzling lightning. He nodded slightly. This guy finally couldn't sit still anymore. I knew you were pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Fighting with me? When it comes to pretending to be a pig, I'm a professional. At this time, the Divine Emperor Yu Ting, who was bathed in lightning, floated in midair and confronted the orc laborer in front of him in disbelief. Behind the Divine Emperor Yu Ting, another 40 to 50 virtual Protoss were spread out in a fan shape. They actually blocked the orc laborer under the wall. Not only that, the orc laborer on the side of the virtual Protoss was spread out in a very strange way. It seemed that when they were escaping before, they had used clever positioning and seduction to lure the other orc laborer who might have interfered with their movements to the other side. Only one of the orc laborer was trapped in place by the Protoss, who were known for their speed. Then they suddenly sped up, shaking off the orc laborer behind them and focused on the lone orc. But with the terrifying power of the fell energy orc, even if it was alone, it was still full of combat power. The fell energy orc did not feel any fear. It still roared and raised its arm, smashing it like a battering ram at Yu Ting in front of it. I'd like to see what you're going to do. Seeing this, while Qin Guang was pondering, the divine emperor Yu Ting moved again. The lightning around him flourished as if he had turned into a milky white ball of lightning. He avoided the fell energy orc's fist and went straight for the giant's chest. The lightning hit the orc's chest, and in the next moment, it was sent flying hundreds of meters away. But the ball of lightning that was sent flying did not stop at all. In the blink of an eye, it flew back to the orc laborer at an incredible speed and once again hit the orc's chest. Once again it was sent flying. The orc laborer roared angrily, but in less than a second the ball of lightning flew back. This time the lightning was still sent flying, but for the first time since its arrival the orc laborer took a step back. Qin Guang's jaw dropped. He really did not expect this guy called Yu Ting to have such a strong and manly fighting style. Under his surprised gaze, the ball of lightning that Yu Ting had turned into flew towards the fell energy orc again. The fell energy orc retreated again. The lightning was sent flying again. But this time the ball of lightning floating in the distance did not fly back immediately. Yu Ting's roar came from within, and then the lightning became even more dazzling. Terrifying electric currents dripped down from where the ball of lightning was floating like liquid. Immediately after, the ball of lightning flew towards the fell energy orc even faster and more ferocious than before. This time the ball of lightning was sent flying for 700 to 800 meters. When it was 300 to 400 meters away, the electric plasma around Yu Ting gradually dissipated. Then his feet landed on the ground, scraping two cracks that were about 300 meters long. Yu Ting's hair was disheveled and he looked a little disheveled, but there was joy on his face. Qin Guang looked back and saw that the fell energy orc he had crashed into had a Z-shaped lightning spear in its chest. The spear was about 10 feet long, and it was deeply pierced into the orc laborer's chest. The spear was also surging with electric plasma. The orc laborer's hands were gripping onto the spear's shaft, trying to pull it out from the ground. At the same time, the virtual Protoss who had been waiting for an opportunity suddenly moved. One by one they hit the other end of the lightning spear with their own strength. But even with the spear as a buffer, the virtual Protoss who had been attacking the spear were all sent flying. But just as the last Wethany was sent flying, Yu Ting pounced on her again. On the shoulder of his combat uniform, a white cloak made of plasma suddenly appeared, and it increased his speed even further. Die! Yu Ting punched the tail of the lightning spear, and the ear-piercing sound of metal being cut rang out. The tip of the lightning spear suddenly protruded out of the orc laborer's back. With the lightning spear as the source, crackling electric plasma surged out from the orc's chest and back, covering his entire body like a spider web. The fell energy orc waved his arms and screamed. But this deafening scream caused the ordinary players who were watching from afar to stumble. Chapter 1169. Even the movements of the other fell orcs froze for a moment before they continued their charge. A large group of orc laborers were getting closer and closer to the virtual Protoss gathered together. However, before they could get close, many of the virtual Protoss scattered in all directions. Only Yu Ting was still standing in front of the orc laborer who had been pierced by the lightning spear. The orc laborer was still struggling in pain, showing its indomitable vitality. Yu Ting approached it again and grabbed the other end of the lightning spear with his hand. The fell orc lying on the ground waved its arms, trying to hit Yu Ting in front of it, but it was all in vain. Its speed was already very slow, and now that it was injured, its body was shrouded in plasma. The power of lightning was constantly eroding its nerves and muscles, making its movements even slower. Yu Ting floated upside down in the air, his hand gripping the lightning spear from top to bottom. Only when the beastman laborer's huge arms swept over would he release his grip for a brief moment. Most of the time his body could only be seen swaying left and right, skillfully dodging the attacks of the beastman laborer. Every time he held the spear, the plasma covering the orc laborer's body became more dazzling, and the crackling sound of electricity became louder. On the other side, the scattered virtual Protoss had taken away most of the fell orcs, but there were still two of them rushing straight in Yu Ting's direction, getting closer and closer. Finally, before the two fell orcs reached Yu Ting's side, the big guy on the ground suddenly tilted its head and died. Yu Ting quickly pulled out the lightning spear. With a flash of light, the spear disappeared from his hand. Immediately, the light on his combat uniform began to flicker wildly. He looked back at Qin Guang with a hint of provocation and dissatisfaction. This guy must have earned a lot of reward points in one shot. Qin Guang thought. With the number and combat power of this fell orc, it was worth at least 100 reward points each. Forget it, it's time for me to make my move. At least I finally know one of Yu Ting's trump cards. It was the lightning spear that he just pulled out. Its power was not to be underestimated. If it stabbed me, I might not be able to withstand it. The balance of the middle realm of the Holy Grail was so bad that it made one's hair stand on end. They were all players, so they should stand at the same starting point. It did not make sense that these virtual Protoss were so much stronger than normal players from the very beginning. Also, it was obvious that the virtual Protoss had not used his reward points yet, but this divine Emperor Yu Ting had directly pulled out a spear from his crotch. Fine, from his body. This is going to scare me to death. The biggest bug in the slaughter world, that is, Qin Guang himself, was currently shamelessly ridiculing the garbage balance of the slaughter world. Qin Guang's but was extremely crooked. The same words came out of Yu Ting's mouth, but it didn't seem out of place at all. Qin Guang had a perfect physical body, a martial sage's inner strength, and the innate talent of the Great Earth Explosion. He was the most unbalanced aspect of the game. After taking a deep breath, Qin Guang shouted at the normal players, "Everyone listen up. First, lure all the orcs to my left. Try to gather them there. Then when I give the signal, gather towards my side immediately." The normal players noticed how the virtual Protoss dealt with the fell orcs, but they could only be envious. If they wanted to defeat the orc laborers one by one like the Protoss, there had to be a prerequisite. Just like fighting the magical beasts, they had to have a main tank in front to attract the boss's firepower while the other players dealt damage. Based on the current situation, the attacks of the normal players were unable to break the defense of the orc laborers. It was like scratching an itch through the boots. The main damage output had to be from the main tank. "Mr. Adam, do you intend to do the same? Is there a problem?" Peasant, who was being chased by two laborers, turned his head and asked uneasily. Qin Guang nodded helplessly and said, "I have to do it even if I can't. I can't let them rob everything, right?" When he finished speaking, Qin Guang looked in Yu Ting's direction. Yu Ting was currently jogging leisurely with the two beastman laborers following behind him. While running, he kept taking out Red Bull and pouring bottle after bottle into his mouth. He was recuperating. It wouldn't be long before he attacked the second fell orc. About 5 minutes later, the ordinary players had also split the fell energy orcs into two sides. As for Qin Guang, he lured an orc laborer to follow behind him. His method was simple. He just had to turn around and spit at the orc periodically. Qin Guang glanced at the orc from the corner of his eye. Seeing that it was about time, he shouted, "That's enough, come over here." After roaring, Qin Guang abruptly turned to the side and circled around the beastman laborers. The orc laborer turned around and faced his back against the walls of the Colosseum. Taking a deep breath, Qin Guang turned around and gave Yu Ting a provocative glance, which Yu Ting was also looking in his direction. Yu Ting seemed to have recovered, but he wasn't in a hurry to attack. Qin Guang grinned. His eyes seemed to be saying, "Didn't you want to see my trump card? Old man, I'll show you how good you are." With this thought in his heart, Qin Guang gave Yu Ting a thumbs up before he abruptly turned his thumb down. "Lord Yu Ting, is he praising us?" Basani asked blithely. The Emperor Yu Ting nodded. "Yes, he's ready to attack. I didn't expect to meet such a respectable opponent in this game. I haven't felt this excited in years. Is this the legendary Heroes Cherish Heroes?" Basani asked again. Yu Ting smiled and nodded. "Yes. Even if we are enemies, the strong are always worthy of respect. Then I'll have to return the favor." Basani looked like she had learned something. She also gave Qin Guang a thumbs down as he retracted his hand. On the other side, Qin Guang silently listened to the conversation between the two gods. He could only silently spit out a mouthful of blood. "Who the hell is praising you? Who the hell wants you to return the favor? Forget it. Let's do it." Qin Guang turned around. The orc laborer had already rushed in front of him. He was waving his huge green fist high and punching down from above. In the face of this situation, Qin Guang did not panic. Instead, he took a deep breath, clenched his right fist and punched upwards. Even the ordinary players who were rushing back and the virtual Protoss who were peeping over were shocked by this scene. "He's going to die." There was a loud bang as the orc laborer's fist and Qin Guang's bamboo-like fist collided. The scene of flesh and blood splattering didn't appear as everyone had expected. Qin Guang just suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Just as everyone was wondering, A bald figure suddenly rushed out of the ground. This time he avoided the fell energy orc's fist and swung his arm at the orc's chin. The fell energy orc raised its neck slightly, but the bald figure seemed to have hit a spring bed. It bounced back to the ground at an even faster speed and once again sank deep into the ground. The strength of the orc laborer's neck was terrifying. Besides, it turned out that Noon had suddenly disappeared because he had been smashed into the ground. But before they could catch their breaths, the disappeared Midday rushed out of the ground again, bringing with it a great deal of dust and mud. Qin Guang once again punched the fell energy orc's chin. The big guy raised his neck even higher. Only then did everyone understand Noon's tactics. Obviously he had the same level of physical strength as the fell orc, or maybe even a little stronger. But the fell orc was too strong, and if he kept getting knocked away he would not be able to maintain a high degree of suppression and always attack the same spot. So he came up with this overbearing and unreasonable tactic, letting the orc hit him from top to bottom. That way he would only fall into the same spot in the ground every time and he would not be hit. This tactic seemed simple, but it was actually insane. Other than him, who else could withstand the continuous heavy attacks of the fell energy orc? And when he landed there was no cushioning force at all, so he would be hurt twice. But the moment he was smashed into the ground he could immediately fight back. What kind of explosive power, what kind of recovery was this? Could his body withstand such a heavy burden? Under similar circumstances, the combat power that Qin Guang displayed was equivalent to twice that of Yu Ting. In fact, these people only saw how cool Qin Guang was when he was showing off, but they did not know how hard it was for him to hold on. Every time he was smashed into the ground he felt as if his body was about to shatter inch by inch, and all his bones were about to shatter, and the pain was like being electrocuted all over his body. At the same time he used his true martial divine skill and the earth miner's innate self-recovery ability to stabilize the shattered bones and restore the severed muscle fibers and tendons. This consumed a lot of his energy, but when he punched the fell orc's chin he was able to absorb the fell orc's 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 fell orc. However, the process was unbearable. "Why are you guys in a daze? Come and help." Qin Guang shouted angrily when he saw the normal gamers standing at a distance in a daze. The gamers came to their senses, but they didn't dare to come into contact with the orc labor. Peasant came up with an idea. She asked loudly, "Does anyone have any long-range weapons or means of attack?" The mixed martial arts coach, magician, stood up and said, I can. Why don't you try using my poker cards?" On the other side, Qin Guang and the fell energy beastman were still fighting to their heart's content. Everyone was looking at the powerless poker cards in the air with stiff expressions, unable to do anything about it. "You can't use my poker cards to attack with power," Magician said in distress. His fingers shook slightly, and a king of hearts shot out from between his fingers like a ninja dart towards the neck of the orc labor that was being attacked by Qin Guang. The other gamers weren't able to do so. The same card was blown away by the strong wind created by the fight between Qin Guang and the orc. "Then, those with long-range abilities can give it a try first. We'll discuss it later." "We'll discuss further," Peasant instructed. And so, 7 or 8 normal players gathered around and started working. One of them hesitated for a short while, and a great sniper rifle appeared in his hand. When others asked him how he got it, he finally had to admit, "Actually, my awakened talent is thermal weapons, but I've been reluctant to use reward points before. This is a weapon I just exchanged, and the 200 reward points that I saved with great difficulty are all gone." The might of his sniper rifle was truly extraordinary. Furthermore, this man must have come in contact with firearms in the outside world. He could always grasp the gap between Qin Guang's attacks and accurately hit the beastman's neck, leaving a deep mark on its green skin. "Forget it, I'll spend my reward points." Another ordinary player stood up. With a flash of light, a dragon chief bow with exquisite craftsmanship appeared in her hand. She pulled the bowstring and a green arrow shot out from between her right fingers. The arrow extended to her left hand that was holding the bow. "This is my awakened ability, Inferior Elven Bow." Inferior Elven? A girl at the side asked enviously and bewilderedly. The bow-wielding lady blushed and said, "This is my first awakened ability. This should be the weapon of the weakest elven race, the ordinary elf." "Will it be a medium elf next time?" "No, it's the inferior elven warrior bow. the bow-wielding lady said as she released her fingers. As the bow-wielding woman spoke, she loosened her fingers, and the magic arrow whistled through the air, piercing the neck of the beastman laborer. Its power was comparable to that of the big sniper from before. As she shot the arrow, her face suddenly turned red and she staggered, but she gritted her teeth and pulled the bow again. At the same time she explained, "With my current ability I can only shoot 2 arrows at once. After that I'll have to drink Red Bull to replenish my energy." The beastman laborers that had been shaken off were still closing in. Those with long-range abilities were already firing at full force, while Qin Guang continued to bombard the beastmen's necks. However, it seemed like he wasn't making enough progress. Qin Guang urged again, "Do you have any other methods? Otherwise we'll have to retreat when the other orcs are closing in. The beastmen have amazing regenerative abilities. If we don't succeed, all our efforts will be in vain." The gamers were anxious, but they were helpless. With the physique of a normal gamer, even a small scratch on the orc's skin would cause them to be smashed to pieces. At this time, a chubby boy from the Genius Junior High School team stood up weakly, raised his hand high and stammered, I might have a way. "Tell us," Peasant urged. The chubby student shrunk his neck after being shouted at by Peasant. "But I'll need everyone to give me their Red Bulls." The coach, who was not far from the chubby student, asked, "What do you mean? What's your ability?" The chubby student looked at the student, who nodded. Then he said, "My ability is summoning." "Summoning? Summoning what? Jenny Turtle? Pikachu?" The youngest girl in Peasant's team asked excitedly. The chubby student's face turned red. "No, it's summoning electrical appliances. To be precise, the heaviest electrical appliance that I can summon is a microwave oven." "What?" Even Qin Guang, who was a distance away, couldn't help but complain. "What kind of superpower is that? Why don't you summon a refrigerator? Isn't that better? Please use a refrigerator." The chubby student was helpless. "Mr. Dang, my awakened ability is too weak. I can't summon a refrigerator." Chapter 1170. Fine. Microwave it is then. Hurry up and get to work. Everyone else, listen up. There's something wrong with the floor of the Colosseum. It will recover on its own. Now the hole below me. Damn the hole below me. Faster see. In short, the depth of the hole below is 8 meters, so the time when I show my head is fixed. You guys have to find the right time to smash the microwave on the orc's neck. Don't miscalculate the time and affect me," Qin Guang urged. Although the fatty's ability looked weak and weird, it might be useful in this special situation. Smashing the heavy microwave on the orc's neck was quite fun. In addition, there were always some ordinary players who had strengthened their bodies. The microwave that was thrown over could bring out the awakened ability of these people, so they could not only be spectators. Unfortunately, he couldn't transfer the reward points to others. Otherwise, Qin Guang felt that it would be better to get everyone to give him 2,000 points so that he could upgrade the microwave into a refrigerator. As for why he didn't pay for it himself? Are you kidding me? We're not related. You're not beautiful and you're a man. You didn't hang out with me at first, but you're the little brother of a restless middle school student. I have no reason to be a lay phone, right? Qin Guang cursed in his heart. He stabbed his hands into the soil on both sides of his body and suddenly exerted strength. His whole body rushed up again. Then he stabbed the tips of his feet into the soil beside him and continued to climb up. After 2 or 3 seconds, he appeared under the orc's chin again. As he dodged the orc's heavy punches, Qin Guang clenched his left fist and punched upward at the orc's neck. At the same time, he turned his body to look in the direction of the ordinary players. He saw the boxing coach, whose arms had become particularly thick, holding an iron cube in his hands. It was the heavy new microwave oven. His face was red as he tried to stretch his hands backward. He only heard a loud roar and suddenly twisted his body. The muscles of his arms burst, and the microwave oven flew toward the orc's neck like a cannonball. A little further away, the fat man was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed. He raised his hands and opened his palms. 2 laser beams were moving rapidly under his palms, and a square 3D image gradually appeared in the form of a cross-sectional scan. The moment before Qin Guang's head hit the ground again, he saw this brand new microwave oven take shape. A man at the side leaned over and hugged her. Sure enough, the world was so big that nothing was too strange. This fatty's ability was incredible. When he emerged from the ground again, Qin Guang saw an even more unbelievable scene. The man who was hugging the microwave just now actually played a trick. He grabbed the fastener on one side of the microwave with one hand and spun it like a top. When Qin Guang's head popped up again, he spun at least 7 or 8 times before he abruptly let go and flung the microwave out. The force of the microwave was even stronger than that of the boxing instructor. This guy must have practiced discus in the past. At the same time, the fat man was continuously making microwave ovens. As time passed, he was sweating profusely, but his speed was getting faster and faster. It was even better than a production line. If he could bring this ability out, he could probably create a fat man brand behind media and super. As time passed, the orc laborers that were pulled away slowly came closer. Peasant chose 5 to 6 normal gamers who were fast but weak. He asked them to follow Qin Guang's method of spitting saliva to infuriate the fell energy orcs. Then he led the orcs in circles to pull the small monsters. These normal players also performed exceptionally well. They were actually able to drag 4 or 5 orc laborers around in circles at the same time. Only 1 or 2 orc laborers managed to escape. One of the normal gamers pulled the 2 orcs away to buy more time for Qin Guang. Finally, after 4 minutes of Qin Guang's action, the fell energy orc fell to the ground. Its originally indestructible neck was broken. The last slash was taken by Qin Guang. The reward points were distributed immediately. After calculating Qin Guang's last slash, they were distributed according to their contribution points. Each orc had 1,000 points. Qin Guang received 700 points. The rest of the normal gamers received at least a few points, and some received tens of points. Unexpectedly, the one who received the most points wasn't the discus thrower, the mixed martial arts instructor, the magical archer, or the sniper. It was the fat man who provided firepower support for the microwave ovens. He received 90 points. The gamers had complicated expressions. The Red Bull used by the fat man to produce the microwave ovens was pooled by the gamers, but he received the most benefits. Qin Guang stood on the disappearing corpse of the orc and observed the undercurrent of the crowd. He was annoyed by the gamers' schemes. Keep your strange gazes to yourselves. It's reasonable for the gamers to have the upper hand in this mission. Otherwise, if any of you can conjure some shot put or javelin, wouldn't it be better? As for me, it's only right that I get the most, right? Listen up, I don't care what kind of clique you have, but at least at this stage everyone has to work together. His words were only symbolic and the others might not listen. It was hard to tell what was in a man's heart. Qin Guang said again, "Okay, I've seen all of your performances. I'll take out 10 spots and let these 10 people make the last slash, okay? Whoever wants to purposely cause trouble for me, showing up for work but not putting in the effort, then they can go and destroy themselves." Everyone's eyes were as bright as snow, who contributed more and who contributed less. Look at these guys who are in charge of luring the orcs. They're only doing a little and no one said anything. The speed-type players were bitter. It's not that we didn't say anything, it's that it's useless to say anything. It's not that we didn't say anything. It's just that it's useless to let us hold the microwave ovens and smash the orcs. Okay, the Protoss are moving again. Let's work harder. Qin Guang clapped his hands together and without any rest he set his sights on another fell orc. Yu Ting, who was fighting the second fell energy beastman, was startled when he saw this. Isn't that guy tired? Yu Ting's guess was right. At this time Qin Guang was not physically tired at all. He looked like he had used up a lot of energy, but in fact he did not even drink Red Bull. The fell orc, which was like a poison to others, entered his body, but was completely suppressed by his Earth Exploder Arcana, and became nutrients instead. After killing the first orc, Qin Guang took a short breather and all the injuries on his body healed. He was full of health. It did not take long for the second fell orc to die in Qin Guang's hands. On the other side, the virtual Protoss led by Yu Ting had finished before Qin Guang, but Yu Ting himself was sitting on the ground resting. He was sweating unbelievably. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Yu Ting said to Vesni, "I can't remember the last time I sweated. Lord Yu Ting, this may be a good thing. In the celestial realm your power is too strong, and it is difficult to experience the feeling of challenge. We came to this mysterious game to become ordinary players, and this special experience will bring us benefits." Yu Ting nodded and looked in the direction of Qin Guang. "Yes, I hope that when my projection returns to my real body, it can make my power, which has been stagnant for many years, grow again." Vesni also looked in the direction of Yu Ting's gaze. "This guy is quite efficient. No, he is killing the orcs a little slower than us." "Then he what?" Under Vesni's slightly horrified gaze, Qin Guang, who had only rested for less than 10 seconds, stood up and walked towards another orc laborer. As for the other ordinary players, they had already started pulling the orcs as soon as he sat down, and now they had some space. Qin Guang jogged over, chasing after a fell orc. He picked up a shell from the ground and threw it forward, hitting the back of the fell orc's head. "Bastard! Come and fight me!" The orc turned and roared, waving his arms as he chased after Qin Guang. Qin Guang spat out a mouthful of saliva, which stuck on the tip of the orc's nose, and then turned and ran slowly. Yu Ting and Vesni were completely dumbfounded. What was this guy's body made of? Why was he more like a god than a god? No, we're only a projection here. Our power has been greatly weakened and we're constantly being suppressed by the laws of the world. It's normal that we're weaker than the local boss, Noon. It's just that this guy is a little too overpowered. No, we can't let him continue like this. We have to increase our efficiency. Otherwise he will rob all the orcs. Yu Ting struggled to stand up and gritted his teeth as he spoke. Vesni asked worriedly, "Lord Yu Ting, are you all right?" Yu Ting's palm emitted lightning as he took out his lightning spear and shook his head. "I'm fine." As the two gods conversed, before the ordinary gamer could lure the orcs, Qin Guang had already started fighting the orcs. Time passed quickly. An hour later, Qin Guang had killed tens of fell orcs. Then he said to the ordinary gamers, "Good, we'll start assigning the orcs. First, peasant." "Why is it her? This isn't fair. She didn't exchange for a weapon and she didn't deal much damage to the orcs." A member of the mixed martial arts team questioned. Qin Guang looked at him coldly and said, "I have thousands of reasons to explain to you. For example, peasant's leadership was praiseworthy. But I don't have the time to deal with you. I'll use the simplest reason to give it to you. I'm willing. Do you have any objections?" There was dead silence and the gamers looked at each other. They didn't expect the gamers to be so unreasonable that afternoon. This is not a house, nor is it your ivory tower school, nor is it your company. This is a world where the strong prey on the weak. Here the strong have the final say and the weak have no right to question. I won't take care of you like your father takes care of an obedient child. If you can accept my decision, follow me. If not, get lost and find a corner to squat in. Qin Guang's expression became colder, and the gamer kept quiet out of fear. Seeing that it was enough, Qin Guang continued, "I know that many of you feel that it's unfair and you might be unhappy with me. You might feel that I'm stronger than all of you right from the start. But I'm not interested in explaining to you because any of you could die in the next mission. What does it matter if I'm unhappy with a corpse? I'm sure you're all elites in real life and have your own pride. You might not listen to me. I won't waste my breath on you. If you're unhappy with me, think of ways to become stronger and surpass me. When your fist is bigger than mine, you have the final say. Now listen to me." The hale and hearty elder clapped his hands and said, "Mr. Dang is right, that's how it should be. Let's continue with the next assignment. It's you, Mr. Dang." Qin Guang nodded and pointed at the elder. Seeing that the elder was hesitant, he said, "I'll say this one last time. I don't want to explain my decision to anyone. If you want to listen, listen. If not, get lost." On the other side, Divine Emperor Yu Ting was sitting in a corner with a pale face. He felt his balls aching as he watched Qin Guang act pretentiously to his heart's content. In the beginning, after he began to shorten his rest time and increase his killing speed, the virtual Protoss team's efficiency temporarily surpassed Qin Guang's. But as time went on, he became more and more tired and his efficiency became lower and lower. Red Bull could relieve physical fatigue, but it could not stop his mental exhaustion. Every time he completed a kill, the time he needed to rest became longer and longer. Gradually, he was left behind by the Noon team. Damn it, my projection's willpower is too weak. It's not even a trillionth of my real body's willpower. I lost to him in willpower. Yu Ting waved his arms angrily. Vesni looked at him and did not say anything. She knew that the Divine Emperor Yu Ting did not need comfort. Forget it. That's it for the third mission. Yu Ting stood up and walked to the next fell energy orc with his lightning spear. At this time, Qin Guang was not in the mood to eavesdrop on Yu Ting. He looked strong on the surface, but in fact he was not relaxed at all. He was also cursing. "Yu Ting, this bastard, is he trying to force me to death? You're a divine emperor. Is it worth it to steal kills from a mortal like me? Are you trying to let us get 2 more kills to eat? Besides, what's the use of snatching so many reward points? silently looking at the game interface that has reached more than 23,000 reward points, and then looking at the ability enhancement that is still gray. Qin Guang really can't speak. If he had the habit of keeping a diary, he would write like this. At first, I thought I could get 20 points like everyone else, but then I realized I was wrong. So I began to look forward to 2,000 points, but I could only eat soup. Later, I thought that 20,000 points would be of some use, but the cruel reality told me that it was all an illusion. Time continued to pass, and after another hour, Qin Guang finished killing 10 ordinary players, including the MMA coach, the sniper, the elven archer, the hale and hearty old man, and the genius junior high school student. As for the kid who defected to the enemy, he could only eat soup. Also, the fatty did not get a share. In fact, he contributed quite a lot, but considering that he could make a lot of money from the bonus after each kill, there was no need to compensate him. Congratulations, players, for successfully completing the third mission. You will have half an hour to rest. As the announcement sounded, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and fell down in exhaustion. Qin Guang just sat cross-legged on the ground. He had to maintain his image as a master. Chapter 1171. Peasant sneaked to his side like a thief and sat down. Mr. Dang it. I have 2,000 points to exchange for the second awakening. Well, that's good. But don't be proud. Did you see that fat guy? And the fridge beside him. This guy's clothes. Peasant turned his head and guessed. Is it because after the second awakening, there isn't a novice combat uniform? It's probably because his body can withstand the energy. He's lucky to have a suitable awakening ability. He got a lot of bonus points. Qin Guang said meaningfully, luck is a part of strength. According to the experience of Mission 2, Mission 4 should be simple. I won't let my guard down this time. Of course, everyone will learn from their mistakes. Everyone will be more careful. Alright, exchange for abilities. Qin Guang said as he observed the gamers. After 3 consecutive missions, the normal gamers were improving rapidly. From fear to calmness, from strangers to familiarity, from confusion to clarity of purpose. Even their gazes became more determined. Peasant, who was beside Qin Guang, closed his eyes, and his body was shrouded in flowing light. When she opened her eyes again, the newbie combat uniform on her body had also disappeared abruptly. She wasn't naked. Instead, she was wearing a plain cotton clothing. Qin Guang felt that peasant's clothing was the standard equipment given by the system after creating a new account in the online game. 0 attributes, 0 bonuses and 0 benefits. How is it? How do you feel? Qin Guang asked. Peasant's expression froze. The hourglass in my shop. Increased in price. That's it? Nothing else? Not really. My ability is enhanced, but if I'm still an orc laborer, it won't be of any use. It's all right. There are specializations. Every ability has a suitable entry point, just like the microwave oven fat guy. Alright, you go do what you need to do. I need to rest. Qin Guang waved his hand and closed his eyes. Thanks to the countless years of fighting in the world of the cup, even though his mind had been sealed in the past, after experiencing so much and comprehending so many things between life and death, his nerves were much more resilient than he had imagined. Luli rarely praised him, but in this aspect he was truly talented. However, this time, in order to steal kills from the virtual Protoss advance party led by Divine Emperor Yu Ting, he was exhausted both physically and mentally. After closing his eyes and dreaming for half an hour, Qin Guang slowly opened his eyes. The 4th mission was coming. The 4th mission is about to begin. All players, please keep your distance from each other. Quest hint: kill your own mirror image. Sure enough, the massacre mission would never play its cards according to the norm. There was no such thing as a high difficulty mission and a bonus question. Mission 4's hint was very meaningful. Qin Guang couldn't help but be curious. He could roughly imagine other people's mirror images, but what about his own? A peerless master? The strange-looking earth mine-eater that had finally revealed its true appearance? An actor? Or was it something else? Also, when they saw their own image, would it be their current appearance or their true appearance? Also, what did the massacre world mean when it separated everyone? Did everyone have a separate battle platform? Was it separate or connected? Could others see us while we were fighting with our mirror images? As Qin Guang's thoughts ran wild, the final countdown came. At this time there was no one around him and the other teams reluctantly scattered. Everyone's team had just matured and everyone in the same team had just finished sharing their awakened abilities with each other, but in the blink of an eye, they had to fight alone again. With the countdown of 3, 2, 1, the ancient Roman Colosseum shook violently as if there was an earthquake. The ground under everyone slowly rose with a rumble. After about 3 minutes, everyone stood on a circular platform with a diameter of 15 meters. No one dared to be careless and looked around vigilantly. But this was not the end. After a short pause, a light curtain rose from the edge of the round platform. The higher it went, the narrower it became. Finally, it formed a dome that looked like a pot lid. Qin Guang nodded with satisfaction. Although he couldn't peep at others couldn't see his ability either. He especially had to be on guard against Divine Emperor Yu Ting. After the dome was completely sealed, the cheers of the audience in the Colosseum couldn't be heard. It became completely silent inside and the atmosphere was even a little stifling. Qin Guang stood up straight, looking around and listening in all directions. He was on guard at any time. He wasn't sure what his mirror image would look like and where it would come from. If it's as sinister as me, then it will definitely be difficult to deal with, Qin Guang thought. Just as he was thinking about this, a round hole suddenly appeared in the air in front of him about 3 to 4 meters high. This was the space-time tunnel that Qin Guang was familiar with. He didn't know where the other end of the space-time tunnel led to, but he could only see rays of golden light coming from it. Qin Guang squinted his eyes and stared at the hole. He held his breath and didn't dare to be careless. The light from the hole became brighter and brighter and Qin Guang ridiculed, "It can't be that a sun will jump out from inside, right?" As he said this, the light inside was so bright that he almost couldn't open his eyes. It was even more uncomfortable than raising his head to look at the sun on a hot summer's afternoon. But he definitely couldn't close his eyes at this time. If the sinister mirror image took the opportunity to sneak attack him, wouldn't his face be covered in tears? Therefore he forcibly poured his inner strength into his eyes and stared at that place. After a few short seconds, 2 lines of clear tears gushed out from his eyes. His eyes were burned. But this didn't matter. Even if his eyeballs exploded, they could grow back. Qin Guang expressed that his emotions were stable. Finally, after a brief moment, the dazzling light gradually dimmed and Qin Guang could finally see the silhouette of a person that floated out of the cave. Well, the mirror image really could only learn the surface. It couldn't learn the sinister side of the old man. It seemed that this world of slaughter mission was as stable as a dog. It didn't even know how to sneak attack. Wait, what the hell is this? Why is my mirror image so handsome? He stared at himself, in midair with his eyes wide open. His face was full of disbelief. This man was wrapped in a shining golden armor from head to toe. He looked very much like the legendary Saint Seiya. He was tall and straight and his long hair was elegant. The most important thing was that his face was not Qin Guang's current bald appearance, but his original appearance. But Qin Guang couldn't understand. He had seen this face for so many years that he was used to it. He was usually not praised as a handsome guy. But why did he feel that his mirror image could be so handsome? Did I unknowingly become a narcissist? Or is there a deviation in my own aesthetics? The golden armored mirror image slowly floated down from the hole and landed 3 or 4 meters in front of Qin Guang. Its empty eyes looked at Qin Guang. Qin Guang suddenly understood. The reason why he felt that this golden armored mirror image was very handsome was either because of the effect of the golden saint suit on him, or because he had a temperament that he currently didn't have. I really don't want to admit it. In fact, I was talking about the temperament of a tall, rich and handsome man. Suddenly, the golden armored mirror image bent his body slightly. Qin Guang didn't dare to be careless. He was also ready to fight. A few seconds later, the golden armored mirror image flew out like a cannonball. Its speed was so fast that even Qin Guang was shocked. Seeing that the situation was not good, Qin Guang flew back while cursing in his heart. He said it was a mirror image, but it was clearly fast. Of course, retreating was not as fast as moving forward. In the blink of an eye, he was caught by the golden armored mirror image, and then the golden armored mirror image punched him in the face. Whether it was the posture or the expression when the punch, the mirror image was almost the same as him. Qin Guang thought that although this was a mirror image, it seemed to be a little faster than him. Maybe it was also stronger than him. Let me try. Well, it was indeed a little abnormal. Qin Guang thought while flying in the air. Just now he tried to punch, but the golden armored mirror image went all out in every move. Qin Guang's right fist, which only used 70% of his strength, was easily broken, and then the punch hit his chest and sent him flying. At least 3 of his ribs were broken. However, he didn't have a chance to breathe at all. Before he landed, the golden armored mirror image was already waiting for him below. In the air, Qin Guang endured the pain and twisted his body. His inner strength burst out, and he used the lightness skill that he hadn't used for a long time. His body changed directions in the air cleverly, and when he landed, he barely avoided the golden armored mirror image's punch from below. However, he still couldn't escape the mirror image's elbow attack after the instantaneous change of move. He was accurately hit in the abdomen by a Dongpa elbow, and he flew horizontally on the ground. He still didn't have any chance to breathe, and the mirror image continued to chase him. Fortunately, this time he was close to the ground and Qin Guang had a place to borrow strength. He jumped with the tip of his toes and his whole body shot out like lightning, barely avoiding the leg that fell from the sky. It had only been a few seconds since they started fighting, but Qin Guang had been in danger 3 times in a row. He didn't dare to imagine what it would be like for other ordinary players to face their own mirror images. After finally seizing the opportunity to get up, Qin Guang didn't care about anything, and just ran wildly to open up the distance. The golden armored mirror image chased after him and he ran desperately in front. He ran laps around the small arena, and he didn't want to face his opponent head-on. At first his movements were a little staggered, but after a few minutes his injuries gradually recovered and he ran naturally and smoothly. While Qin Guang was running, he was also racking his brains for a way to change the situation. Although he had the ability to regenerate, he would exhaust his ability sooner or later if he kept being chased like this. It seems that the mirror image can't catch up with me? As he ran, he suddenly realized this. When he looked back, it was as he expected. The distance between him and the golden armored mirror image was almost constant. Qin Guang immediately understood this principle. It wasn't that the mirror image was faster than him. It was just that he had been too careless before and he didn't completely squeeze out all his potential and burst out with the strongest speed, which reflected the mirror image's speed. It was the same principle, including the punch that put him at a disadvantage at the beginning of the fight. The so-called 4th mission to kill one's mirror image was actually to defeat oneself, and to be the strongest self. To complete the 4th mission, the gamer had to squeeze out all his potential. That was because every gamer's opponent was a version of himself who had used up all his potential. To defeat the mirror image was to surpass the limits of oneself. After understanding this principle, Qin Guang felt much more relaxed. At most, he would give it his all at every moment. Even if he couldn't take it anymore, he could drink Red Bull. He didn't know how to use his 23,000 points. After thinking about it, Qin Guang realized that after the 3rd mission, there were a few gamers like Peasant who had accumulated 2,000 points to exchange for the 2nd awakening, so they didn't have many points left. Thinking about it this way, it was the people who performed the best in the first 3 missions who were in the most danger. Forget it, I can't care so much. I'll just pray for my own good luck. With this thought in his mind, Qin Guang abruptly came to a stop and turned around. He raised his fist and roared, "It's time to see if you have the same talent as me." Chapter 1172. This time he no longer held back and punched with all his might. He knew the golden armored mirror image as well as he knew himself. He knew what choice the mirror image would make in the face of his counterattack. Sure enough, in the face of the heavy punch, the mirror image did not dodge. After a muffled groan, he also swung his fist at Qin Guang. The 2 of them punched with their right fists at the same time. Neither of them blocked the other's attack. They just wanted to punch each other. Qin Guang cursed in his heart. What an idiot. Didn't he know how to avoid the sharp edge and then counterattack with his legs when the opponent was exhausted? Wasn't this more effective? However, after cursing, he immediately realized that he was not scolding himself for being stupid. In the blink of an eye, both of their fists accurately hit each other's chest. It was exactly the same force and it hit the same place. The 2 of them flew backward in the air at the same time. Even their postures and expressions as they struggled to regain their balance were exactly the same. If it were not for the golden armored mirror image's holy clothes, Qin Guang would even have the illusion of looking in a mirror. With 2 bangs, the 2 of them landed in the distance. Without thinking, Qin Guang turned around and continued to run while holding his chest. He was injured again. At least 3 of his ribs were broken. However, the injury on his right hand was more serious. It was a bloody mess and the broken bone was like a broken tree branch. Looked very funny. Qin Guang was in so much pain that his forehead was covered in cold sweat. What made him extremely angry was that his fist had hit the golden armored mirror image with the same force, but it did not cause the same injury. The mirror image had an extra armor than him, and there was definitely something strange about the armor. It did not cause any obstruction to the mirror image's movements, but at the same time, it could provide him with a super strong defense. When Qin Guang's fist hit the golden armor, he first found that his strength was evenly distributed by the armor and dispersed to all parts of the mirror image's body. Before he could react, he felt a strong force surging from the mirror image's chest armor and attacking his fist. As a result, while Qin Guang's chest was injured, his fist was also severely injured. Fortunately, he had rich experience in being injured. Although he was in pain, he was not careless when he fled. Moreover, he was recovering from his injuries as he fled. But he was more or less affected. From time to time, the mirror image would catch up to him and punch him in the back. Fortunately, he had made up his mind to escape and not resist. Although the mirror image's fist was heavy, it could not break his bones. Instead, it provided him with a rocket-like thrust every time, making it easier for him to escape. After running for a long time, when his injuries were almost healed, Qin Guang's speed was completely the same as that of the mirror image again. Only then did he have the mood to look back at the golden armored mirror image behind him. He was immediately overjoyed. Although the change was subtle, it was true that the golden armored mirror image was slower than before, by about 1,000th. Even though my punch was buffered by the armor, it still caused some damage to him. That's right. The internal force of the old man is so strong. There is no reason for me to let you break my bones and injure my internal organs, while you were just bitten by a mosquito, right? Other people might not be able to see it, but this was Qin Guang, the strongest dart player in history, the strongest internal force martial artist, a super pilot and a best actor. He had a pair of top-notch eyes that could see the general trend. Even if the gap was as small as 1,000th, he could still see it. Well, it was actually a blind guess. He purely relied on the legendary sixth sense. But at this time he had no better choice but to believe in his own judgment. After a while he felt that his state was completely adjusted. Qin Guang turned back and punched again without saying a word. This time he pretended to swing his right fist, but in fact he lifted his left leg to kick the opponent. Flying in the air again, Qin Guang was also amazed. Compared with this broken mirror image, it was really like looking into a mirror. He was playing tricks, but he didn't expect that the mirror image would also play tricks. The result was the same as the last time they fought, except that they used their left legs to kick each other's stomach. Fortunately, I didn't know how long I hadn't eaten and my stomach was empty. Otherwise, I would have kicked yesterday's dinner out. The human abdomen was a very vulnerable position. Once it was violently hit, it was easy to be fatally injured and even life-threatening. For example, Qin Guang now felt that his spleen must have been broken, his kidney was not much better, and his spine was 100% dislocated. As for the other injuries, he didn't bother to care. Anyway, if it were someone else, they would have died 7 or 8 times. What made Qin Guang admire him was that even in such a difficult situation he could still grit his teeth and run. It was just that his speed was much slower than before and he kept being kicked in the butt by the mirror image in the golden armor behind him, which looked very miserable. After a long time, Qin Guang finally recovered. When he looked back, he was further convinced of his previous judgment. This sneaky mirror image must have been injured and it didn't have his recovery ability. The 3rd time, the 4th time, the 5th time, in the 6th exchange, Qin Guang finally got what he wanted and punched the mirror image's neck, a spot that wasn't protected by the golden saint garment. As for himself, his neck was almost broken, but the result was gratifying. The mirror image in the golden armor was also seriously injured and he also developed a new idea. After all, being hung by the neck did not affect the speed of running. After a while he looked back. The state of the mirror image in the golden armor was really much worse than before. This time Qin Guang finally saw the light. The ability of the Earth Burster was really high level. Obviously, it was not something that could be replicated by a high-level Heaven Cup. Aren't you very capable? I will exhaust you to death. Thus, Qin Guang relied on his roguelike talent as a great earth popper to fight the golden armored mirror image. But what he did not expect was that after suffering a loss, the mirror image no longer foolishly let him attack the neck. Every time he attacked him, he was very careful, protecting his neck while attacking Qin Guang's neck. In desperation, Qin Guang sold his neck and hit other parts of the mirror image. It seemed that he suffered every time, but in fact he made a lot of money. Later, his physical fitness and talent ability slowly could not keep up, so he decisively began to use his reward points to exchange for gold sore medicine and Red Bull. Compared with ordinary people, his consumption of these two medicines was much greater. Fortunately, he had more than 20,000 points. Anyway, there was no place to spend them, so he could make as much as he could. As the saying goes, there is no sun or moon in the mountains. After an unknown period of time, the golden armored mirror image finally collapsed with a loud bang as he smashed his handsome face with a heavy punch. Then it turned into specks of light and dissipated on the martial arts arena. Qin Guang wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and sat on the ground, gasping for breath. When he looked at his reward points again, he could not help but be speechless. Unknowingly, he had spent more than 3,000 reward points on gold sore medicine and Red Bull. God knows how long it took him to kill the mirror image. Congratulations to the player for defeating himself and successfully killing the mirror image. You have received 30,000 reward points. With this prompt, the light curtain above his head gradually dissipated like a balloon under the sun. Seeing this, Qin Guang reluctantly sat up straight and calculated in his heart. He had mixed so miserably, the others were afraid that they would be even worse. This time he was afraid that there would be casualties. Finally, when the light curtain completely dissipated, Qin Guang suddenly realized that perhaps the flow of time in everyone's arena was not the same, because everyone's light curtain dissipated almost at the same time, but it was impossible for everyone to deal with the mirror image at the same speed, right? XX died reset. Died reset. Since entering the slaughter world, this was the first time that everyone had heard such a dense prompt. Everyone who had just been immersed in the joy of their survival suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold, and then there was a terrible silence. Qin Guang also silently counted in his heart. This time a total of 7 people were lost, so hurt. Although the number of casualties in the beginning and the first mission was higher, in the later mission 2 and 3, the situation gradually stabilized, and everyone formed a tacit understanding with each other. At least in the hearts of most of the gamers, they had the thought of working together to overcome the difficulties together. The cruelest part was that after they had just established a relationship with each other, they had to face the tragedy of losing their comrades. Qin Guang was the first to stand up. Out of the 33 arenas of the ordinary gamers, there were 7 empty arenas. The contestants on the arenas were long gone. Everyone turned their attention to the virtual Protoss and saw that they were chatting and laughing as they jumped off the stage. They were happily gathered together. They didn't look like they had gone through a life-and-death ordeal. It was as relaxed as going out for a stroll. As for the casualties, there were no casualties. Everyone looked at their own dazed appearance and felt that it was extremely unreasonable. It was illogical. If it was a fair game and everyone had to surpass themselves to defeat the mirror image, the gods wouldn't be so relaxed. Is the difference between us and them that huge? We don't believe it. Mr. Dangus, why? Peasant pointed indignantly at the virtual Protoss. The round battle platform beneath her was descending slowly, but she didn't realize it. Based on what? Based on what? A strong member of the Hale and Hardy Elders team leaped onto an empty arena and walked around in a daze, trying to find some clues. But he couldn't find anything. The Hale and Hardy Elder came to the bottom of the arena, followed by 3 other members. The 4 of them looked at each other. Under the leadership of the Elder, the 6 of them had been together from the beginning. They had the most stable relationship and their teamwork was the best. They were confident that as long as they didn't encounter a violent attack that could destroy the other teams, they could work together and persevere to the end. But no matter how much they thought about it, they never would have thought that a mirror challenge that separated everyone would allow the brother with the strongest combat strength among the 6 of them to leave first. Moreover, there was no warning at all. They knew why he failed. It was because his awakened ability was explosive potential. Therefore, if everyone in the mirror challenge had to face their most extreme selves, then unfortunately, they would most likely have to face themselves who were always in their strongest state after activating their abilities. If he wanted to activate his ability, he would have to expend energy. After a long time, the energy would exceed his body's limit. It wasn't hard to imagine what would happen to him. Everyone calm down. There's no such thing as fairness in this game. I wasn't any better off than you guys. I almost failed miserably. Seeing that the atmosphere was too heavy, Qin Guang took the initiative to stand out to calm everyone down. After a short while, all the circular arenas returned to the ground. Everyone calculated their losses. Even Qin Guang felt that the situation was grim. The Hale and Hearty Elders team lost one member who was their strongest member. They were left with 5 members. Peasants' team suffered greater losses. They lost 2 members and they were left with 4 members. Though there were many members in the mixed martial arts team, they suffered the heaviest losses. They lost 3 members and they were left with 12 members. The junior high school team also lost 1 member and they were left with 3 members. At this moment, including Qin Guang, there were 25 ordinary players left, which was almost half the number when they first entered. Compared to the virtual gods, the normal gamers were in a terrible state. The more sad news was yet to come. Although everyone could exchange for the second awakening, it was extremely embarrassing that everyone finally discovered that the reward points needed for the third awakening were not 20,000 as they had imagined, but just like the first to the second awakening, it had increased by a full 100 times, becoming an outrageous 200,000. Qin Guang did not speak any further. At this point in time, if these people still couldn't adjust their mentality, then they deserved to die. They had to understand the same principle as him. No matter what happened, they could only deal with it when it came to soldiers with arms and water with an earthweir. The more emotional they were, the more easily they would be swayed and the faster they would die. Nobody owed anyone anything. I'm very capable, but I won't always be your nanny without reservation. As an old grandpa of the novice village, I've already done my utmost. As Qin Guang's imagination ran wild, there was a violent quarrel in the distance. He looked up and saw the mixed martial arts coach's team. He didn't know what the mixed martial arts coach had asked for, but someone was questioning his decision. Why do you want me to exchange for a laser sword? Don't interfere with my decision. I have my own plans. I'm not a melee fighter. Don't be like this. For a team, we have to maximize everyone's resources. Didn't I exchange for new combat boots for everyone? Don't joke around. The effect of your boots is only worth 20 points per pair, but my laser sword costs 1,000 points per pair. According to your request, if I have one each, I'll be in a passive position in the next mission. Not to mention that I can't use it myself. Don't be so hypocritical. Mr. Dang is right. You're just using us. The mixed martial arts coach was embarrassed. But you're already wearing my boots. Take it. Goodbye. From now on, I have nothing to do with you. After saying that, he threw his things and left. Unexpectedly, after he left, 2 more people followed him out. Obviously, these 3 people were close to each other from the beginning. Maybe they didn't trust the mixed martial arts coach from the beginning. Now that they had completed their second awakening, they felt that it was time to leave the mixed martial arts coach and work alone. At this moment, the electronic beep sounded again. At the same time, countless lights and shadows appeared in the Colosseum. Mission 5 is about to begin. Kill the mosquitoes. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, they could take a short break after waiting for a free question. Chapter 1173. Unlike the previous cockroaches, the floating light before the mosquitoes appeared was not stuck to the ground. Instead, it floated in the air like fireflies, surrounding everyone within it. The glimmering light floated quietly, making the arena that was filled with blood and slaughter look like a fairyland. But no one dared to relax too much. Everyone had just lost 7 companions not long ago, and with the precedent of the cockroach mission, everyone was still worried that there might be traps in the 5th mission, even though they thought that it was a freebie. Just like the cockroach mission. It looked cute and funny, but in fact, if it wasn't for Mr. Dang Wu who spared no effort in killing the monsters, everyone would have been sent to heaven. Thinking about it now gave them a lingering fear. So, it didn't matter if these mosquitoes were strong or not. They just had to catch them and kill them. The sooner they killed them, the better. After making up their minds, almost everyone acted as soon as the mosquitoes formed in the air. All kinds of fancy tricks flew in the air just like fireworks during the New Year. The 3 people who had left the team of MMA coaches were especially outstanding, especially the young man who had argued with the MMA coach. He was actually a magician. He rubbed his hands in front of his body in a strange gesture and mumbled something. Bursts of flames gradually appeared between his hands, becoming brighter and brighter. After a short while, a fireball the size of a human head actually jumped out from the place where his hands were rubbing. The fireball shot out, flying in the air and spreading out. When it was 5 or 6 meters away, It became a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 5 meters. Finally, it exploded 10 meters away. God knew how many mosquitoes he had burned to death. The other two people beside him were also very interesting. The man on his left was very tall, holding a huge shield in his left hand and a shining longsword in his right. It was probably the lightsaber that had caused the argument between the magician and the MMA coach. But the most eye-catching thing about this man wasn't the lightsaber, but the shield in his left hand. As a former WoW player, Qin Guang naturally recognized this thing. It was the legendary Azanatha's shield, also known as the door plank in Jianghu. For a long time, Azanatha's shield was the dream of all warrior players in World of Warcraft. Because of its unique appearance, it symbolized the identity of the main tank of a guild. It was the most important item to lead the entire party to challenge the Sunwell, and it was very popular in the game. Qin Guang didn't expect to see him here. He was surprised and cordial at the same time. This thing was really domineering. If it wasn't for the fact that his opponent was Mosquito this time, he would have definitely attracted the attention of countless people when he took out his battle shield. However, it looked a little comical now. The man on the magician's right held a long leather whip. That's right, it was a leather whip. At this time, the old man was waving his whip crazily, and the air was filled with dense crackling sounds. It sounded like several tens of thousands of firecrackers had been ignited. This person must be a circus animal trainer in real life, Qin Guang thought. It was a pity that he was not a priest, otherwise the three of them would form the legendary warrior, mage and priest golden triangle combination. What a pity. The boxing coach led another group of people and looked at the three of them coldly. He gritted his teeth in hatred. If the distribution of rewards for this fifth mission was exactly the same as the previous second mission, then whoever was faster and more ruthless in the team would get more mosquito heads, and of course the more benefits they would get in the end. These three people were supposed to be the new force on his side, especially the magician's big fireball. However, he really couldn't hold it in before. He was tempted by the laser sword in the shop that this guy had accidentally mentioned. He didn't expect to play right into his hands, giving him a legitimate opportunity to fall out with him. It was too late to salvage the situation now. It was a pity that Brother Spitfire had died tragically in the hands of the fell orcs. Otherwise, this fifth mission would be more suitable for him. The boxing coach turned his gaze to the distance again. There, the girl holding the low-grade elven warrior's bow was summoning a magic arrow and pulling the bowstring to its fullest. The next moment, the dazzling emerald magic arrow whizzed out, heading straight for the wall of the Colosseum in the distance. But before it hit the wall, the magic arrow made an inconceivable turn and circled around the Colosseum. It circled 3 or 4 times at an extremely fast speed before it slowly disappeared. It was obvious that the magic arrow had killed countless mosquitoes. Peasant clapped his hands and the magic arrow girl blushed shyly and humbly. Then she continued to draw her bow and shoot. After the second awakening, not only did her bow and arrow level increase, but her magic arrow could also make a turn. Though there were only 4 members in Peasant's team, they were getting along well. The normal gamers weren't idle. The virtual Protoss also used various means, but they were at a disadvantage. Like Qin Guang, each of them had saved tens of thousands of reward points, but they couldn't spend a single cent. At the beginning, the gamers were fearful of their godly power. Now they were no longer mysterious. Only the divine Emperor Yuting was still invincible, but the other Protoss were no longer feared. Some of the more hot-tempered ordinary players were secretly tempted to find an opportunity to provoke the virtual gods. If they could kill 1 or 2 of them, it could be considered as revenge for the other players who had died tragically at the hands of the virtual gods. As for Qin Guang, he wasn't paying any attention to the others. It was so much so that he wasn't even trying his best to swat the mosquitoes. On the contrary, he would pinch them to death with every step he took. Furthermore, he would also occasionally slap those fellows that were courting death on his body. He was observing the changes in the mosquitoes and the evolution of the offense and defense between the normal gamers and the virtual Protoss. After the virtual Protoss' initial period of dominance, the normal gamers who had grown stronger at an incredible speed had reversed the situation. The gap between the two sides was still there, but it was getting smaller. The virtual Protoss led by the divine Emperor Yuting first suffered at the hands of Qin Guang. Now, because they couldn't use their abilities to strengthen themselves, they were gradually catching up. They also quickly lost their dignity as gods and became more cautious and careful. Qin Guang suddenly felt that the evolution of the two forces in this small ancient Roman Colosseum was very similar to the history of human evolution. A big country was stagnant because of some irresistible reason, but before that they had ruthlessly bullied the small countries around them. The small countries that were bullied by the big countries didn't dare to speak out because of fear. However, with the help of some mysterious power, they grew stronger at a very fast speed and caught up. The big countries gradually felt threatened, but there was nothing they could do. The small countries held a grudge because of the previous encounter and could turn against them at any time. In addition, the mosquitoes weren't as simple as they looked. More and more mosquitoes surrounded him, so much so that even he couldn't kill every single one of them. He also found that even with the toughness of his skin, he couldn't stop the sneak attack of the mosquitoes. A few bumps were bitten on his calves and he felt a numb and itchy feeling. He raised his palm and slapped it down. When he raised his palm again, there were 8 dark red blood balls on it. They were 8 bloated guys that had sucked a lot, and it was very annoying to look at. Although he wouldn't be knocked down by the mosquitoes with his ability, Qin Guang simply circulated his internal energy and wrapped it around his whole body, not giving the mosquitoes any chance. Then he carefully observed the changes in the parts of his body that had been bitten. A few minutes later, his expression changed drastically and his calves became a little weak. The health points that he had lost could not be replenished in a short time by relying on the talent ability of the Earth Burner. The damage he had suffered was greater than he had imagined, and the poison of these words was strange. After being bitten by the mosquitoes and injected poison into the body, even his physique would become weak, let alone others. As expected, Qin Guang turned his head to look in the direction of the others. The originally aggressive group of normal players was now on the verge of collapsing. Many of the weaker players found it difficult to even stand. These small teams had gone from taking the initiative to attack at the beginning to gathering together, trying their best to resist the invasion of the mosquitoes. But they were not the worst off. The virtual Protoss were even worse off. Yu Ting was anxiously busying around. The other virtual Protoss who had been insufferably arrogant were gathered together. Many of them had already fallen and they looked very weak. Many of the Protoss had already exchanged for gold sore medicine and Red Bull in an attempt to recover, but to no avail. Even Qin Guang, with his recovery ability as the Earth Burner, could not easily recover, let alone a mere Red Bull. After a while, the number of mosquitoes on the side of the normal players gradually decreased. It was not that they had made any progress in killing the mosquitoes, but that the black mass of mosquitoes in the sky had almost all gathered on the side of the virtual Protoss. At this moment, most of the virtual Protoss had already collapsed to the ground. They no longer had any strength to resist. Only Yu Ting was bathed in lightning, charging left and right. Everywhere he went there was a bright light and countless mosquitoes exploded and died. But the area he could cover was limited and the mosquitoes were everywhere. There were always more mosquitoes that pounced on the bodies of the other Protoss, biting and gnawing at them. On the contrary, the normal players who were getting more and more relaxed laughed when they saw this. Every dog has its day. You bunch of arrogant bull-nosed Protoss had your day? Weren't you all very capable? Weren't you all cocky? Look at you all. We don't pity you at all. Qin Guang frowned as he watched this scene. He did not say a word. This scene was a little like a large group of people taking a walk in the woods on a hot day. Those with type O blood were bitten all over, while those with type B blood did not feel anything. They even mocked those with type O blood for being mosquito coils in human form. It was good to finally see the virtual Protoss in trouble. However, as the Redeemer who had immersed himself in the world in a cup, Qin Guang felt that something was amiss. Mr. Dang, why don't we take advantage of his weakness and kill him? The boxing instructor was tempted, but he didn't dare to make a decision. He ran to Qin Guang and asked. The hale and hearty elder walked forward. This time he shared the same opinion as the boxing instructor. That's right. Those who are not of our race have different intentions. Many of our comrades died tragically at their hands. It's time to take revenge. Peasant, the junior high school student, and the fireball magician did not express their opinions. They looked at Qin Guang and waited for him to make a decision. All Qin Guang had to do was give the order, and everyone would make use of this opportunity to deal a heavy blow to the other party. Even if they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to put up any resistance against the mosquitoes. Qin Guang shook his head. Don't worry. The situation is strange. I'll go and take a look. Chapter 1174. What's so strange about that? Their blood smells better and the mosquitoes love them more. I noticed before that their blood color is different from ours. Who knows what kind of creatures they are? The genius junior high school student interjected. Didn't they say it themselves? Divine race. Alright, calm down, I'll go take a look. I don't know if you noticed, but the mosquitoes around the divine race are flying faster and bigger. As Qin Guang spoke, he walked forward. The sniper following the hale and hearty old man took out his big sniper rifle and looked through the scope. He nodded vigorously. That's right. Mr. Dang's observation skills are really sharp. Yiting, what do you want to say now? Qin Guang walked to the front of the gods, and if he took another step forward, he would be met with the densely packed mosquitoes that looked like a black cloud in the sky. These small insects were crazily squeezing into the center, but they ignored Qin Guang, who was right in front of them. It was a strange sight. The buzzing sound was even more deafening than the noisiest workshop. If a normal person stood here, they would probably go deaf. Yiting ignored Qin Guang. He continued to charge left and right like a bolt of lightning. Seeing that he was ignoring him, Qin Guang knew that he was arrogant. He felt that gods should not ask mortals for help, so he refused to speak. Qin Guang was in no hurry to act. He stood outside with his hands behind his back, watching calmly. Of course, Yiting knew that Qin Guang was close. But just as Qin Guang had expected, he was the most noble god emperor in the endless god realm. He could not bring himself to do this. Although Dang Wu's identity was extraordinary, and he could take the initiative to form an alliance with him and ask for help, this was not just his problem. But this wasn't just about him. It was also about the mortals who stood behind him. The gods who were lying on the ground, covered in mosquitoes, looked in the direction of Qin Guang's voice with anger and indignation. They were even more resentful and humiliated than Yiting. But they could not stop their divine power from flowing out. Many of them did not even have the strength to exchange for Red Bulls and pour them into their mouths. They even had a feeling that their projections were going to die here in an incomparably sullen manner. However, they still gritted their teeth and held on. None of them asked the divine emperor Yiting to ask the humans for help. Alright, can you stop being so stubborn? I didn't even ask you to beg me. As long as you say that you can't hold on any longer, I'll start thinking of a way, right? Qin Guang spoke again. But Yiting still didn't move. He simply waved his hand and sent out a bolt of lightning, clearing away the mosquitoes on her body. He then looked at his subordinate. Her eyes were closed and she seemed to have lost consciousness. Her originally chubby face in the projection of a little girl had become slightly thinner. A strong sense of helplessness welled up in Yiting's heart. Although he already knew that this so-called game wouldn't be easy, he never dreamed that an incomparably noble god would fall at the hands of such a laughable little bug. The mosquitoes that even mortals looked down upon could actually take the lives of gods like them. Pray to mortals for help? Stop joking. Go. I don't need your help. These laughable bugs can't hurt us at all. Yiting purposely said in a loud voice, but he secretly gulped down 2 bottles of Red Bull, allowing the lightning to cover every part of his body again. Qin Guang was also convinced. It seemed that these gods cared more about their faces than their lives. Perhaps their arrogance was their weakness? Forget it, that's not important. I'll just quietly watch them die. The sooner they die, the sooner they can be reincarnated. That way I won't have to worry about them in the future. After waiting for a long time, the black cloud formed by the mosquitoes became a little smaller. Yiting's desperate killing had finally achieved some results. But the lightning inside was slowly becoming dimmer and dimmer. Qin Guang changed his mind. He suddenly had a real desire to kill. If he could, it seemed that he could really kill these hidden threats of the virtual gods in the 5th mission. That seemed like a good idea. Why not just watch them die? There were still 4 missions left after the mosquitoes. Maybe, probably not too scary, right? I don't need to cooperate with these unlucky gods' projections to complete the mission, right? Calculating with his fingers, it might be a little difficult. Just like that, Qin Guang answered his own question and gradually started to waver. Forget it. I'll see what changes have happened to these mosquitoes first. Circulating his inner strength to protect his palms, he reached forward casually and grabbed one in the air. He held it in front of him with his index finger and thumb. Sure enough, this thing was really bigger. Crushing this thing, Qin Guang actually felt the incredible power of gods from his fingertips. This damn thing was going against the heavens. Not only could it suck blood, but it could also absorb divine power. If this continued, Wouldn't the virtual gods be completely sucked dry and turn into the legendary invincible mosquitoes? This fifth mission seemed like a free point for ordinary players, but for the virtual gods, it was a difficult problem. It was a bit like asking foreign high school students to do Chinese junior high school students' reading comprehension. Chinese junior high school students looked so simple, but the foreigners just wanted to die. Mosquitoes had limited damage to ordinary people. They could only suck blood, but everything had its weakness. They could actually absorb the power of gods as nutrients to complete self-strengthening. This was very scary. Qin Guang crushed a few more mosquitoes to death. The results were the same. They were all big guys that had mutated and become stronger. The mosquitoes gathered here had all sucked the blood of the virtual gods once and did not die. This discovery made Qin Guang feel bad. Suddenly he found a particularly large mosquito in the mosquito pile in front of him. He reached in and pinched it. When he pulled it out and squeezed hard, he felt a sharp pain in his fingertips. Looking down, the black guy in his hand, the size of a fingernail, was shining with a metallic light. It had pierced through the protection of his inner strength. What stung his fingertips was not its needle but its torso and wings. He attached more inner strength to his fingers and even condensed it on his fingernails. He used a move he learned from the realm of true martial that was similar to the Nine White Bone Claw. Only then did he crush the tough old mosquito to death. Immediately, Qin Guang sucked in a breath of cold air and looked up at the black cloud in front of him. He saw another big guy of the same size, but it did not rush inside. This guy was killing and gnawing on its own kind. In the short few seconds that Qin Guang looked over, this big guy had used its needle to completely suck its own kind dry, and then turned its target to another mosquito next to it. But Qin Guang did not give it a chance. This time he used the Nine White Bone Claw from the beginning and grabbed it fiercely, pulling it out. This time Qin Guang used a greater force to crush it to death. Then he turned around, took a deep breath and shouted, "Not good. Everyone come here. Hurry up and come here. Attack these damn mosquitoes with all your might. Otherwise all of us will die." What a joke. Up until now, none of the virtual gods had been sucked dry. The divine emperor Yu Ting was still resisting stubbornly, but there were already mutated mosquitoes that could penetrate his protective shield. Only God knew how many of these ferocious mosquitoes were evolving crazily in the black cloud. If they were allowed to suck the virtual gods dry, even he would not be able to deal with these mosquitoes. The real test of Mission 5 was whether the ordinary players and the virtual gods could let go of their grudges and pride and go from opposing each other to working together. Otherwise, everyone would die together. Hearing his shout, Peasant and the hale and hearty old man led the team and ran over without hesitation. The remaining ordinary players slowly approached Qin Guang. Clearly, they didn't know the severity of the situation. They were somewhat reluctant to see Qin Guang helping the Protoss. Qin Guang looked at them coldly and said, "If you want to die, tell me earlier. Do you think I'm joking? These damned mosquitoes are becoming stronger. Now they can even harm me. Yoon, I can't hold on any longer. Help us. If you want to survive this damned massacre mission, we have to work together. I admit that I shouldn't have treated you that way, but from now on, we have to work together." Yu Ting's voice finally resounded from the depths of the clouds, and Qin Guang could even vaguely see a green radiance. The gods had suffered serious casualties. This was the last straw that broke Yu Ting's back. Yu Ting had told the other gods not to take this mission lightly, but he wasn't any better. Now that he had to pay the price, he was willing to let go of his arrogance. Did you hear that? Whether it's because you don't want to die or to earn reward points, it's best to use your trump cards. We have to kill all of them before they finish eating all the delicacies in their eyes. Otherwise we'll be dead. As Qin Guang said this, he suddenly turned around and pushed out with his palm. 2 waves of inner strength shot out from his palm and actually created a hole in the black cloud in front of him. However, no one paid attention to how he got his firmament palm, or what ability he used. No one was amazed by the power of this move. Everyone just stared at the gap with incomparably serious expressions. In the gap, there were at least more than 10 big fellows that were about 2 fingers in size. Their entire bodies were glowing with bright silver light as they quietly flew in the air. They were completely unaware of the palm force that Qin Guang had just struck out. They were only at a loss as to why there was suddenly no one of their own that they could prey on. They swayed as they flew around randomly for a while. Then they immediately flew forward like lightning, pouncing into the black mass of mosquitoes. See that? They've evolved again. This time we're not facing those ridiculous cockroaches from the second mission. Do you still think we can just stand by and watch? Qin Guang stretched out his finger and pointed at the 10 or so daunting big fellows, and squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. As he spoke, there was a sudden flash of green light from inside. Another virtual Protoss had fallen to these ridiculous mosquitoes. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a crisp sound next to him. The female magic archer standing next to him had already pulled the bowstring to the fullest and was the first to attack the black cloud. Let's do it or we'll really die. Everyone move faster. At this time the MMA coach stood up and acted as his leader again. But no one paid attention to him. He was a melee ability user. When it came to dealing with mosquitoes, if he was not willing to use his reward points to buy some treasures in his shop system, his role would be no different from a cheerleader. For a moment, many ability users with long-range skills, especially those who could release flames, were using all kinds of means. At this time, countless mosquitoes were gathered together, which provided great convenience for these ability users. For example, the fireball thrown by the magician was even more effective, as it blew up a whole swarm of mosquitoes. The guy who used a sniper rifle before was also very impressive. He actually bought a military flamethrower from the reward point shop. He aimed it at the mosquito pile and burned it. Although it couldn't burn the more evolved ones, it could filter out the weaker ones like a filter. It was very effective. The MMA coach asked him if he could buy another one as a loan of reward points. The gamer said sullenly, "Apologies, the shop is limited to one." The MMA coach could only watch anxiously. He wasn't the only one who was anxious. Peasant could only stand at the back of the crowd, unable to move forward. Though the mosquitoes were only targeting the Protoss, if one of them barged in and attracted the attention of the insects, no one would be able to withstand the attack of countless evolved mosquitoes. While the melee ability users were at their wits' end, the sneaky genius high school student and the fat home appliance guy finally made a move. The fat home appliance guy raised his hand and shouted, "Big guy, come to me. I've just developed the super electric mosquito swatter. 10 bottles of Red Bull for one. Everyone come and collect." Everyone went forward, puzzled. They didn't know what he meant. The fat home appliance guy laughed and didn't explain. He spread out his hands and said, "Here 10 bottles of Red Bull for one. I only collect the production fee, not the processing fee." Now that everyone was rich, 10 reward points were nothing. Peasant took out his reward points to see what the fat home appliance guy was up to. The fat home appliance guy's hand was suspended in the air, and below his palm was the legendary 3D printing light that looked like a laser scanner. With his other hand he poured the Red Bull into his mouth. His movements were fast and his stomach was like a bottomless pit. The Red Bull wasn't a real Red Bull. It looked like a liquid and tasted the same, but when it entered his stomach, it would turn into pure energy. 20 seconds later, the fat home appliance guy handed the legendary super electric mosquito to Peasant and said, "Please enjoy." Peasant took the sign and walked briskly to the side of the black cloud. He raised the sign and swung it forward. When the electric mosquito swatter hit the black cloud, there was a crackling sound. Wherever the electric mosquito swatter passed, there was an explosion of lightning and thunder like the Milky Way. The electric mosquito swatter left a half-meter dent in the black cloud. The electric mosquito swatter was abnormally powerful. The battery in the handle of the normal electric mosquito swatter could only last for 0.1 seconds. The fat home appliance guy worked on the second electric mosquito swatter and said proudly, "How is it? Didn't I say it's super powerful?" Qin Guang, who was striking the cloud-expelling palm, was shocked by the power of the electric mosquito swatter. It was beyond the power of the fat home appliance guy. After that, Qin Guang turned to look at the genius high school student. Unlike the fatty who was in high spirits, the high school student seemed dispirited and exhausted. Perhaps the genius high school student's ability was to upgrade and modify other people's abilities. Could the fat home appliance guy modify the normal electric mosquito swatter into a super powerful version? Because it was a modified version, it didn't conform to normal scientific principles. It was a magical item, so the energy required to produce one was higher than that of a microwave oven. With the support of the ammunition provided by the fat home appliance guy, the gamers who lacked special means were no longer spectators. The lightning in the black cloud became dimmer and dimmer. Occasionally there were bursts of green light that signified the death of the Protoss. At first the busy gamers were gloating. However, as time went by, the gamers felt a chill down their spines. Such a powerful god race was only targeted by the slaughter mission once, and he actually died so silently and miserably. Ordinary people like them were extremely lucky to be able to survive from the first mission until now. Unknowingly, the gamers stole glances at Qin Guang, who was striking the black cloud tirelessly. Many of them thought to themselves, although Sir Dang has a bad temper, if it wasn't for him they would have all died long ago. Chapter 1175. For the players outside, they were currently enjoying the pleasure of harvesting the loot. The evolving mosquitoes looked terrifying, but in the eyes of ordinary players, they were nothing more than living targets that could withstand grass. If they couldn't kill the mosquitoes in one shot, they would kill the mosquitoes that could be killed first. Those that couldn't be killed would be left aside for the mosquitoes to escape. As time passed, the black cloud of mosquitoes became smaller. Initially, it was 100 meters in diameter, but now it was only 10 meters in diameter. The deeper the mosquitoes were, the harder it was to deal with them. Apart from that, the magic arrows of the elven archers were also dealing less and less damage to the mosquitoes. In the beginning, she could kill at least tens of thousands of mosquitoes with a single arrow. Later, the number decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Now she could only kill a few dozen mosquitoes with a single arrow. She didn't know the reason. After observing the situation, she inhaled a cold breath and said, "Oh my God! The mosquitoes are dodging my mana arrows." The fireball magician nodded and said, "Don't be surprised. The mosquitoes in front of me have turned fiery red. They are resistant to my fire mana. What kind of evolution speed is this?" A man who was holding the electric mosquito swatter provided by the fat man said in horror, "The effect of the electric mosquito swatter is getting worse. It's unbelievable. The mosquitoes in front of me can discharge electricity." Peasant nodded and said, "This isn't a simple discharge. They have evolved to store electricity. They absorb the electricity from the electric mosquitoes and release it to the surface of their bodies to form electric plasma." The hale and hearty elder nodded and said, "That's scary. If the mosquitoes attack us, we won't be able to defend against them." The Sonda coach, who was wearing the new combat uniform he had exchanged for, interrupted, "So, everyone hurry up and give it your all. The situation isn't looking good. There's no need for you to say it. Even a blind person can see that we've already used all our means, but we're almost at our wits' end against these mosquitoes." Mr. Dang said that the evolved mosquitoes can penetrate his defense. If we were in their shoes, we would be defeated in the blink of an eye. Don't forget that their venom is strange. So we really should move faster. Also, have you noticed that the light that appears from time to time means that some Protoss have fallen? According to my calculations, there are at least 10 Protoss who have died in there. That's right. God knows how terrifying these mosquitoes will become if all the Protoss are sucked dry. The Sonda coach seized the opportunity to make his presence known again. Qin Guang was really convinced by this group of chatterboxes. People who didn't know what was going on would really think that they had a sense of urgency just by listening to them. But you have to talk less nonsense. The less these unlucky mosquitoes talk, the more they die. I say if you want to have a meeting, you can wait until Mission 5 is over and then slowly have a summary meeting. Can't you be a little more serious, a little more urgent? Can't you see that the gods inside are almost all dead? Are you going to have a picnic or a tea party? Qin Guang really couldn't control his temper when faced with these talkative fellows at critical moments. He was very angry and couldn't care less about his temperament as an expert. After being scolded by him, everyone hurriedly got to work. The lightning that burst out from Yu Ting's body still hadn't been extinguished. As expected of the leader of the Protoss Advance Party, he definitely had some trump cards up his sleeves. He had actually lasted until now without running out of stamina. But Qin Guang could also imagine his indignation and resentment. In his advance party, most of the Protoss didn't seem to be his subordinates from the celestial realm and weren't close to him. But he was a god after all. How shameless and arrogant was he, leading a team out to cause trouble with mortals that they looked down on, and in the end a nest of his comrades died. If it were him, he would definitely feel very embarrassed and humiliated. Also, even at this time, this guy was still trying to save his face and suffer. If it were him, he would definitely be so anxious that he would try his best to give the only reinforcements outside, which were the mortals, some kind of flattery. He would say that as long as they could save them, he would thank them on behalf of the gods, and he would definitely reward them after the matter was over. In short, he would try to trick as many of them as he could. Say, a bunch of your subordinates have already died, so why are you still pretending to be a big shot? At this time, Qin Guang had completely figured out Yu Ting's mentality. He was indeed very anxious, but he didn't want to show his panic in front of mortals. Apart from that, Yu Ting also felt that the weaker and more useless he appeared, the more likely these mortals would treat him like they were watching a show. Perhaps they were only afraid of Dang Jin's prestige and had no choice but to help. Many mortals probably hoped that all of the Protoss would die. If this was a different situation and these ordinary players were in danger, Yu Ting couldn't decide whether he would lead all of the Protoss to save them like he did with Dang Jin. Even he himself felt that this change in his state of mind was exceptionally inconceivable. In the celestial realm, he was the emperor of the gods, and he had an incredibly strong and indestructible spiritual will. He would never be shaken by anything. Even when he lost his best friend and comrade many years ago, his heart never wavered. But this time, ever since he came to this extremely strange and narrow space in the form of a projection and participated in this so-called game, Yu Ting found that he had changed. Although he still despised mortals in his bones, he had to admit that he had become like one. He began to be easily angered, and he began to have some unnecessary emotional feelings in his heart. He even knew that this so-called arrogance was also a manifestation of his emotions. When a real god faced an ant, he would not have any emotional fluctuations. He would not be angry, nor would he look down on them. He would not even have so-called arrogance. Just like how a mortal would not be angry at an ant in his eyes, a real god should have this mentality when facing a mortal. Yu Ting didn't notice this before, but now he finally realized that he wasn't the only one who had changed. The other Protoss in the advance party were even worse than he was. Yu Ting looked at Noon, who was shooting out his palms and getting closer and closer to him and the fallen gods behind him. He couldn't help but wonder if it was the gods who had fallen, or if it was the talented mortals who had ascended in this game. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, he suddenly felt a sharp pain from the back of his waist. Yu Ting reached back and grabbed a palm-sized silver mosquito. He picked it up and squeezed it in his palm. Like usual, he exerted a little force, and at the same time his palm surged with the power of lightning. He tried to easily kill this reckless fellow. But his face revealed an expression of extreme shock. He didn't manage to crush it to death. What kind of joke is this? Yu Ting was shocked. He gritted his teeth and continued to exert more force, using at least twice the force he used before he managed to crush the mosquito to death with great difficulty. After all, this was just one mosquito. The sound of Dang Jin's palms was still several meters away, and Yu Ting didn't know how long it would take for him to kill his way in. Yu Ting thought to himself, am I really going to die here in such a ridiculous manner? Forget it, even if the price of losing a projection is heavy, if I can rely on my own godly power to nourish a powerful mosquito that mortals can't defend against and let Dang Jin die here as well, doesn't that seem like a good ending? Why don't I just give up on resisting? Once this thought was born, it rapidly grew in Yu Ting's heart. As Qin Guang fought, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Yu Ting didn't make a sound. He couldn't have died, could he? Qin Guang cursed inwardly. He wasn't worried for these gods who deserved to die, but for his own fate. If you die, then die. Don't drag me down with you. Yu Ting, are you still alive? Give me some reaction. Qin Guang yelled at the top of his lungs, but no one paid any attention to him. Even the lightning, which had never been extinguished, had completely dimmed. It's over. Is that idiot God Emperor really going to die? Friends, something's happened, something's really happened. That idiot God Emperor is about to die. I just caught a big guy. You guys can come and take a look. Qin Guang held a giant silver mosquito like the one God Emperor Yu Ting had once squashed to death and retreated outside. I can bet you $10,000 that none of you can last 5 seconds under this mosquito's mouth. Qin Guang squeezed the struggling big guy tightly. Electricity surged in his palm, mixed with various kinds of divine power. It looked colorful and exceptionally terrifying. This thing had sucked up at least 1,000 of its kind and had evolved to a terrifying degree. It was no weaker than the one that had pierced through Yu Ting. Do you guys want to try its power? Qin Guang asked as he increased the strength of his fingers. Everyone shook their heads. Then let's go all out. Now that all the Protoss have become real fertilizer, these things are going to evolve crazily. Once they're sucked dry, what awaits us is this thing or even stronger. After Qin Guang finished speaking, he suddenly exerted force in his palm. His inner force burst forth and he suddenly crushed the big guy to death. Then he flew back inside. Behind him were countless ordinary players who had completely unleashed all their potential and were madly pouncing on him. Couldn't keep up physically? No way. There was Red Bull. Was it hard to keep pouring Red Bull into your mouth? It didn't matter. Not long ago someone had redeemed 100 bottles at once, triggering the mysterious clause in the reward point shop. The legendary upgraded version of Red Bull had appeared. Viagra Sustained Release Capsule. Upgraded version of Red Bull Physical Recovery Potion. Suitable for men and women young and old. Anyone who uses it will know that love lasts forever. 100 reward points for one capsule, and the effect was 100 times that of Red Bull. After swallowing it, it would not take effect immediately. Instead, it would gradually release its effect as the user's physical strength was consumed. Of course, with everyone's physical strength strengthened after the second awakening, the body's energy consumption was also much greater than before. When everyone first came to the slaughtering world, a bottle of Red Bull could restore all their physical strength. As for now, if it weren't for the appearance of the Viagra Sustained Release Capsule, everyone would really be extremely distressed. They could only hold a bottle in one hand and a weapon in the other. The Sustained Release Capsule was indeed a good thing. It was just that the product manual was slightly retarded. Finally, after a full 10 minutes, Qin Guang and the others finally cleared most of the mutant mosquitoes on the periphery. They finally saw a scene that made their teeth ache. There were about a dozen big guys left on the scene, and each one was the size of a human head. As for the Protoss, they had lost nearly half of their numbers. There were about 20 Protoss lying on the ground. On average, there were 2 or 3 big guys lying on each virtual Protoss. Among them, the most eye-catching one was Emperor Yu Ting, who stood at the forefront of all the virtual Protoss. He had completely lost consciousness but still did not fall. Even if this guy wanted to die, he refused to fall because he wanted to save face. His originally tall and strong body had become as thin as a stick. It was as if there was only an empty frame left. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind, and his handsome square face also showed an extremely sickly look. He looked like a critically ill patient with protruding cheekbones and sunken eyes. Unlike other virtual Protoss, there were at least 10 of them lying on Yu Ting's body. However, at this time Qin Guang did not sympathize with him at all because he realized that this guy had not really lost his ability to resist. Damn it, I've seen stupid people, but I've never seen such an idiot. He actually planned to feed the mosquitoes and let them deal with me? Stop joking. Idiot. Everyone. Qin Guang roared and took the lead, charging forward. Yu Ting, stop pretending. I know you can still move. As he charged, Qin Guang shouted. As expected, Emperor Yu Ting opened his eyes slightly. You actually saw through me. Nonsense, do you think I'm stupid? You clenched your fists so tightly that the veins on the back of your hands are popping. I'm not blind. As Qin Guang spoke, he ruthlessly struck Yu Ting with his palm. Although Yu Ting looked extremely weak, Qin Guang knew that his palm would not be able to kill him. A skinny camel was still bigger than a horse and Yu Ting's skin was thick. The wind from Yu Ting's palm struck him, but the 10 or so big gold and silver guys hanging on his body did not move at all. You guys are going against the heavens. Flashing behind Yu Ting, Qin Guang raised his leg and kicked Yu Ting's butt. The sound of a cannonball was heard and Yu Ting flew out. This time, the mosquitoes hanging on his body finally broke free unwillingly. However, they did not care about Qin Guang, who had interrupted their meal. They were like moths flying into a flame as they pounced on Yu Ting, who was flying in the distance. I'll deal with these 10 mosquitoes. I'll leave the rest to you. No matter what, we can't let them evolve. Qin Guang casually said to the players before pouncing forward. Behind him, the electrical appliance fat man screamed in delight. Everyone! I've released a new product. The gamers were elated. What? An improved version of the superheated electric mosquito repellent incense burner. The gamers staggered and almost fell to the ground. What kind of innate ability was that? What about the mosquito repellent incense tablets? Peasant grasped the key point. The electrical appliance fat man laughed smugly and said, It's not tablets, it's liquid. It's a mosquito repellent that comes with the supermarket. It's the same with me. Qin Guang, who had reached Yu Ting before the huge mosquitoes, gave the electrical appliance fat man a thumbs up. He was a genius. As he looked at the 10 approaching huge mosquitoes, Qin Guang inhaled deeply. It was time to show his true skills. Come on, scoundrel. Eat the old man's 18 mosquito subduing palms. The gamers might not believe that his moves were called the 18 mosquito subduing palms and not Mr. Jin's 18 dragon subduing palms. This was one of the unorthodox moves that he had learned from the 400,000 unique skills of the world of true martial. It came from a martial emperor who had lived in the primeval forest for most of his life and fought with mosquitoes. This move was extremely stupid to use against people, but it was extremely effective against mosquitoes, especially those that were large in size and could fly very fast. Chapter 1176. There were thousands of skills in the world. Even if it was the art of making meatballs, as long as it was practiced to the extreme, it could be filmed and uploaded to the internet. It would shock countless people. The 18 palm of subduing mosquitoes that Qin Guang displayed at this time was also the pinnacle of human skills, condensed from the thousands of years of hard work of that martial emperor. The realm of true martial was a very mysterious world, and Qin Guang had dealt with many strange-looking monsters in it. Only the heavens knew how the unlucky martial emperor in the world in the cup was able to come up with such a despicable martial art. He had locked himself in the primeval forest for his entire life, dealing with strange mosquitoes that were at least the size of a palm, but in the end he managed to come up with such an unorthodox martial art. He practiced it, but after he mastered it he did not spread it and let this lost skill be buried with his grave in the depths of the mountains. If it were not for the fact that Qin Guang had to complete 400,000 lost skills in the realm of true martial and spend a lot of effort to find it and learn it, no one in the entire realm of true martial would know that there was such a strange martial emperor. When he first learned this skill, Qin Guang almost thought that this skill would never see the light of day, but he did not expect to encounter such a rare opportunity today. At this time, under the momentary excitement, his shout was so loud that ordinary players in the distance could hear it clearly. It's the 18 palm of subduing dragons. Mr. Dang, don't you dare change the name of the skill. A martial arts enthusiast in the team of MMA coaches shouted angrily. Qin Guang lightly hit out his palm as if he was caressing a girl and said, "Don't worry about me, mind your own business. Hurry up and do it. Don't let the Protoss die again." He hit the first golden giant mosquito in front of him with a seemingly gentle palm, but it hit the aggressive big guy in the face. In addition, Qin Guang's right index and middle fingers happened to open, just enough for the giant mosquito's needle to pass through the gap between his fingers. In the next moment, the giant mosquito screamed and flew backward. There were two things that surprised everyone. Firstly, the mosquito had not died after taking a direct hit from Mr. Wu, nor had it been blasted. Secondly, could it be that the 18 mosquito subduing palms that Mr. Wu mentioned was true? Otherwise, how could he have thought of this move so skillfully? He swatted the mosquito away with one hand, and then used his two fingers to forcefully break the syringe. However, just as everyone continued to exclaim in surprise, they saw that the giant golden mosquito that was slapped flew back 10 meters. It shook its head and flew back again in high spirits. This damn thing's syringe actually grew back. Everyone was dumbfounded, and even Qin Guang was startled by this scene. However, he didn't have the time to care about the giant golden mosquito that had recovered. Not far from him, the other 7 or 8 giant mosquitoes of different colors had already pounced over. However, not a single one of them took the initiative to attack him. Instead, they all directly and efficiently moved around him, directly pouncing towards Yu Ting, who was behind him. "Noon, you better get out of the way. I failed my mission. I don't need your sympathy and I don't need you to save me. I shouldn't have asked you for help in the first place. If I were you, I would have let him rest and recuperate, waiting for the real battle." Yu Ting's weak voice sounded behind Qin Guang, sounding quite righteous. Qin Guang turned around and spat at his face. "Stop pretending. Do you think I don't know what you're planning? You probably already felt that there's something fishy about this 5th mission, right? You know that if we watch you all die we won't end up well, right? I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter whether you understand or not. Anyway, before this is over you can't die." Qin Guang roared, then turned around to face the swarm of mosquitoes. He circulated all the inner strength in his body, and at the same time, stuffed 10 Viagra slow-release capsules into his mouth. Then he slapped his palms into the air again and again. Streaks of inky black energy surged out from his palms, turning into numerous dragons that moved left and right in the air. They crashed into the giant mosquitoes and sent them flying far away. However, these giant mosquitoes weren't ordinary people. Although the scene looked spectacular, they didn't die. They flapped their wings slightly and flew back, each of them as tough as iron. Ever since he had entered the slaughter world, although he had appeared very powerful, he had never used his full strength in front of an outsider like he was now. He had continuously released the power of his vital qi. The ordinary players looked at the inky black energy that filled the sky. For a moment the scene was like a Wuxia movie. Qin Guang was also speechless. These mosquitoes weren't mosquitoes. They were clearly the Gundam of mosquitoes. The miniature Gundam. Wait, what are those idiots doing? Qin Guang, who was using all his strength to defend Yu Ting against the 10 giant mosquitoes, caught a glimpse of a green light from the corner of his eyes. Only then did he realize that the idiotic players had yet to attack the giant mosquitoes that were still crawling on the bodies of the other Protoss players. They were all watching his performance. I say, do you really want to go against the heavens? Why do you think I'm working so hard? I really want to anger you to death. Don't look at me, mind your own business. As he scolded, Qin Guang slapped away the giant mosquitoes. At the same time he had to look at the changes in the Protoss that had just died. Previously when these people died, they were covered by the black cloud of mosquitoes so he couldn't see them clearly. Now he could barely see them. That's weird. Although there was a green liquid like when I killed the Titan, why wasn't it absorbed by the sand in the arena? Instead it turned into dust and disappeared into the air like normal players? What's going on here? But he didn't have time to figure out the trick behind it. The 10 mosquitoes in front of him seemed to be gradually angered by their failure to attack. Even the sound of their flapping wings became more ear-piercing, and their flying speed became 3 times faster than before. The only good news was that after he scolded them, the normal players finally started to move. Apart from the fat man and the genius high school student, the other 20 or so people all held a liquid mosquito killer. Only God knew how this thing was powered. They waved the mosquito killer in their hands, the indicator lights flashing wildly, and rushed forward. Then they aimed the smoke of the mosquito killer at the Protoss who was lying on the ground. Then everyone took out their weapons and used their abilities to attack the giant mosquitoes on the Protoss. At this time the close combat awakened metahumans showed their advantage. They didn't have time to think about whether or not the Protoss should remove the syringes slowly. They just used a hammer, a kick, or Azanatha's powerful shield, or a whip that dragged the bodies of the giant mosquitoes and flung them. In short, with everyone using all sorts of methods, the mosquitoes on the Protoss all fell off. But not a single one died. They circled in the air and continued to pounce on the ground. Just as everyone was marveling at the tenacity of these mosquitoes, there was a sudden flash in the air. A silver mosquito started to evolve under everyone's watchful eyes. In less than 3 seconds this thing's body split open, and a golden thing jumped out like a cicada shedding its shell. As for the shell it had shed, it turned into the most primitive energy in the air and was sucked back like a reverse waterfall. The golden giant mosquito grew even larger in the air. These things are stronger. I recognize this one. It's the one that killed a god with a few others. Everyone, think of a way to kill it. I understand, but we can't break their defense at all. Driving them away is already our limit. At this time the boxing coach kicked the golden giant mosquito that was hanging on the lowly goddess Vasani with all his might. He said, "Let me tell you another piece of unfortunate news. If the giant mosquito turns gold it can completely ignore us. I can't fight it at all." In front of him the little girl Vasani was lying quietly. There were at least 5 golden mosquitoes hanging on her body. Why are you saving her? Don't worry about other things. It's better if she dies first. This little girl is very sinister. The sniper of the hale and hearty old man's team reminded. The boxing coach suddenly understood. That's right. With that he turned and left. Qin Guang saw this and felt helpless. This little girl goddess was very close to Yu Ting. If she died the consequences would be very serious. It wasn't that Yu Ting's anger was worth caring about, but that Yu Ting was a god emperor. This meant that Vasani was not a simple person. She had to be at least a god emperor to be able to talk to Yu Ting. Then this projection of her must have the most god power and the highest level. She was only second to Yu Ting's chicken. If these giant golden mosquitoes were allowed to eat her until they were full, what awaited them might very well be the next stage that had never appeared before. Just the golden ones alone were so difficult to deal with. The next stage would most likely be eating people. But at this time he couldn't just leave Yu Ting alone. He could only say loudly, "Everyone listen up. No matter what, we must get rid of these 5 mosquitoes. Do you hear me? Otherwise, Mr. Dang, I have a better idea. Qin Guang grabbed one tightly with one hand and continued to shoot out black energy with the other. He replied, "Speak. Isn't the reason why we want to save them because we don't want them to become nutrients for the strange mosquitoes? If that's the case, then we can kill the gods first. Then won't the nutrients disappear first?" The hale and hearty old man continued to speak. Qin Guang shook his head. "Old mister, you only see the gains and losses in front of you. You don't understand the true mystery of this mission like I do. Although it seems that we are enemies with the divine race, there are still 4 tasks waiting for us in this world of slaughter. The meaning of the 5th task is to test whether or not we humans will lend a helping hand when the divine race is on the verge of destruction. If we let them die now, then what if we need them to help us in the next part of the mission? If they are targeted by the Massacre World mission, then of course we will be targeted as well. Then there will be a situation where your awakened power can't deal with it. When that time comes, who will come to save you?" Everyone was silent. "Also, in the next 4 waves of mirage beasts, will there be a part that requires both god power and awakened power to kill? When that time comes, will we just stand there and watch?" Qin Guang said each word slowly. "Right, I understand. Let's take out the things." The hale and hearty old man finally gritted his teeth and said to a companion beside him. This person was still a little unwilling, but the old man looked at him with a firm gaze. He hesitated a little and finally nodded silently. The next moment, what appeared in the palm of his hand was a spray can with a skull logo. "What is this?" Qin Guang asked while trying to pinch the giant golden mosquito in his left hand to death. "Military super strong mosquito repellent," the old man said with a pained expression. He was pained for the man who exchanged for the mosquito repellent. "Must be super expensive. Sigh, a whole 10,000 reward points are gone. Now I'm completely out of ammunition and food," the old man said with incomparable distress, and then another can appeared in his other hand. Saying that, he walked to Wethany's side, picked up the mosquito repellent and sprayed it on the little girl. The effect was really outstanding. 5 giant golden mosquitoes soared into the sky and instantly escaped. His eyes lit up and he shouted in the direction of Qin Guang, "Mr. Dang, I received a system prompt saying that my mosquito repellent can repel mosquitoes for half an hour with the help of Fatty's mosquito killer." Qin Guang was also overjoyed. "Awesome. But one can only spray 50 people. In this way my 2 cans can only provide 2 hours of shelter for the remaining 20 protoss." The man added. Qin Guang's left hand was still exerting force. 2 hours? That's enough. I'll think of a way." So the old man ran around with the mosquito repellent. In less than a minute, the 20 or so protoss who had fallen to the ground were no longer attached to them. Instead, there were dozens of big guys of different colors flying around under the leadership of the 5 golden mosquitoes. They were at a loss and did not know where to go. But these giant mosquitoes did not last long. A few seconds later, they changed direction and rushed towards Qin Guang. Qin Guang was shocked. He had to throw away the guy in his left hand that was still not dead. He quickly stuffed another 10 Viagra into his mouth, and his inner strength surged even more. He waved his hands like a golden snake and shouted, "Hurry up! Give it to the Divine Emperor Yu Ting behind me." Before he finished speaking, dozens of giant mosquitoes flew over in a menacing manner. The inner qi in Qin Guang's body flowed out like a flood. Unbearable pain came from all over his body, and extreme fatigue almost tore his body apart. Fortunately, he had the innate ability of the earth explosion to protect him. The young man with the military mosquito repellent rushed over. Qin Guang suddenly felt that something was wrong. He raised his hand to stop him, but it was already a step too late. The young man still sprayed the mosquito repellent on Yu Ting and even clapped his hands in satisfaction. "Done." Qin Guang sucked in a breath of cold air. "This is bad." Chapter 1177. It was good that the mosquito repellent, which cost 5,000 reward points, was effective, but the problem was, where would the giant mosquitoes go after losing their main target? Second later he got the answer. The smug mosquito repellent guy was so scared that he froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. The 10 giant mosquitoes that had been frantically surrounding Divine Emperor Yu Ting, refusing to leave, instantly turned around and headed straight for him. It had been a long time since he had been bitten by a mosquito, but he still remembered the strong sense of powerlessness he felt at that time. What would it feel like to be bitten by a big guy the size of a human head now? He didn't even want to think about how he would be sucked dry in about 3 seconds. But this wasn't the worst. On the other side, the dozens of mosquitoes that had been rushing toward Qinguang and Yuting also stopped midway, and in the next moment they rushed toward the people over there. Faced with this situation, most ordinary players panicked and their scalps felt like they were going to explode. Qinguang was also very annoyed. He shouldn't have asked the mosquito repellent guy to give Yuting a shot. He should have let the mosquitoes surround Yuting. In this way, all of them were concentrated on his side. Although it was very difficult for him to resist, he had yet to use the strongest palm of the 18 mosquito-subduing palms, repenting against mosquitoes, so it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Of course, Qinguang had left the move until now not because he was deliberately hiding it, but because there were many prerequisites to use this move. Back then, the senior martial emperor had come to a sudden realization when he was about to reach the end of his life. In the end, he had integrated all his knowledge into this last move. As the name suggested, mosquito repellent. To put it simply, his last palm strike was comparable to young hero Yang's melancholic sadness palm. It contained an incomparably majestic momentum, infinite emotions, and an incomparably exquisite palm technique and inner force circulation method, which pushed its power and momentum to the extreme. Could be said that one move could shock the world. The reason why it had such terrifying power was because of the senior martial emperor's deepest emotion before he died. Regret. I always make life difficult for the mosquitoes, and I can't even accept a satisfactory disciple. What on earth am I after? Am I stupid? Am I out of my mind? Who in the entire true martial land can be found as stupid as me? Just as he was cursing himself, another giant forest mosquito flew in front of him, and it was an extremely powerful mosquito king that he had never faced before. He scolded the mosquito king again. It's all your fault. When the old man first learned martial arts, he sent your children and grandchildren to disturb me, causing me to go mad. My father died to save my bloodline. Not only have you harmed my father, but you've also harmed me for the rest of my life. With self-blame, regret, and boundless hatred, the anti-mosquito martial emperor struck out with the strongest palm strike of his life and finally killed the mosquito king. Then with his last breath, he carved the last palm strike on the stone wall with his finger and died on the spot. Countless years later, Qinguang came here to see and learn it, and it could be regarded as an inheritance. Now Qinguang used a higher level of true martial divine power to promote the anti-mosquito regret. The overall power might not be as good as the effect of the yin and yang qi in the true martial realm, but it could definitely be regarded as the strongest unique skill since he entered the slaughter world. Moreover, the attribute was very suitable for the giant mosquitoes in front of him, so it would definitely be effective. Well, after saying so much, in fact, according to Qinguang's understanding of the heavenly Holy Grail, he was most likely the scapegoat for the creation of the damn 18 mosquito resistance palm. After all, when he was in primary school, he secretly read old Mr. Jin's martial arts novels, and especially admired Master Qiao Feng's 18 dragons subduing palms. Usually, when he was joking with his classmates after class, he often made fun of the 18 dragons subduing palms. When the heavenly Holy Grail created the true martial realm, it must have used his memory for reference so that in the end it came up with the 18 mosquito-subduing palms that looked very serious, but in fact it was all kinds of unserious. It even found such a serious story background for the strongest move, anti-mosquito regret. He could only express his admiration. Now it was also very troublesome for him to use this move. He had to use the 18 mosquito resistance martial emperor's lifetime unique skill once in order to fully understand the sorrow of the martial emperor's life. Only then would he be able to brew the feelings of anti-mosquito regret, and then the move he used would have that taste and power. Even if he was the true martial saint and sat on the true martial divine power, if he wanted to deal with the deadly giant mosquitoes in the slaughter world, he had to abide by the basic rules of the 18 mosquito palms. Only the moves that contained emotions were the real unique skills. Then the problem was, although the 18 mosquito resistance martial emperor's lifetime essence was the 18 mosquito resistance palm, and it sounded like he only needed to use one palm at a time to finish the task, this was all a lie. Until now he had only used the second palm. What? Someone asked him when he used the first palm? How could he tell others that the first palm of the 18 mosquito resistance palm was actually the so-called cloud expelling palm, also known as shocking 100 mosquitoes? What was even more insane was that the first palm strike actually needed at least 1,000 strikes to be completed. Right now, the ink-black energy that he struck out was actually only the second palm strike. Its real name was Divine Mosquito Tail Whip. According to his estimation, it would take at least an hour for him to come up with the anti-mosquito regret. The time bought by the mosquito repellent brother was just right, but now he only had about 10 seconds. What are you guys still standing there for? Hurry up and spray mosquito repellent on yourselves. Do you guys want to die? To think that I still treated you guys as elites. Aren't you guys too disappointing? Qin Guang felt that he had become a nanny. Perhaps this slaughter world didn't require him to kill, it should be renamed to the nanny world. What made him even angrier was that not only did he have to protect the lives of mortals, but he also had to protect the lives of the celestial race. He really didn't have any dignity as a supreme nanny. He shouted as he stood in front of the mosquito repellent brother to buy some time for him. The mosquito repellent brother didn't need to be reminded. He had already taken out his bottle, but he was 2 seconds late and didn't spray it. On the other side, where Peasant and his companions were gathered, the brother left another bottle of mosquito repellent in the hands of the hale and hearty old man. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, the old man acted as though he was 60 years younger. He shouted for everyone to stand in a row and planned to spray the mosquito repellent. But it was too late. Tens of large mosquitoes were about to pounce on them, but the old man didn't even spray 1/3 of them. He stood in front of Peasant. Qin Guang knew that things were not looking good. He thought that the rest of them were doomed. However, at this critical moment he suddenly felt that the giant mosquito in front of him had slowed down a lot, as if it had fallen into a swamp. Qin Guang was puzzled. What was going on? There was no reason. He didn't do anything. With such doubts, Qin Guang turned his head to look at the mosquito repellent brother. He discovered that the young fellow's mouth was wide open as he tried to aim the mosquito repellent at himself. The young fellow's movements were strange. It was like slow motion. That's right, it was slow motion. Everyone on the other side and the giant mosquito formation that was flying halfway also became slow motion. Hearing this, Qin Guang rejoiced. Could it be that his potential had awakened and he managed to comprehend a new ability that allowed him to control time? Wait, what was that? Just as he was about to show off, he suddenly noticed a slender figure flashing past the players in the distance. As she ran, she took the mosquito repellent from the old man's hand and sprayed it on everyone. Qin Guang looked closely. Wasn't that Peasant? She was holding an hourglass in her hand and it was glowing faintly. Seemed to be working. Qin Guang instantly figured it out. He recalled that she mentioned that her ability was related to time. She even mentioned that her special tool in the reward system store was an hourglass. She finally used her awakened ability. It was so powerful that Qin Guang was in awe. He didn't know why it didn't work on him. She didn't have enough reward points to exchange for the hourglass after her second awakening. How did she buy it? Peasant was busy. She felt the gaze from afar and glanced at Qin Guang. She was shocked, but she quickly calmed down. Mr. Dang was the most special being in the world of massacre. It wasn't strange that her time ability didn't work on him. Though she was thinking, her movements weren't slow. She ran around and sprayed the mosquito repellent on herself. Qin Guang wasn't looking at Peasant. He was helping the young fellow spray the mosquito repellent. After a while, the large mosquitoes and the gamers returned to normal. The hale and hearty elder exclaimed, "Where's the mosquito repellent?" Peasant passed the bottle to the elder listlessly and said, "There wasn't enough time. I used my ability." Everyone sprayed the mosquito repellent. Don't panic. The gamers didn't know what was going on, but the mosquitoes in front of them turned around and left without hesitation. Smelling the scent on their own bodies, they had no choice but to believe it. It was the same for Qin Guang as well. He threw the bottle of mosquito repellent to that man and took a few steps back. At the same time he said, "I've already sprayed it on you, so don't waste it. Run over there and meet up with them." As he dealt with the 10 large mosquitoes, Qin Guang surveyed the other side. After ensuring that everyone was safe, he heaved a sigh of relief. Slapping the giant golden mosquito that flew quickly into his face, he then patted his own chest, thinking that under his brilliant and divine command, he had once again passed through a dangerous situation. I seem to have forgotten something. Qin Guang looked at the tens of large mosquitoes that had lost their targets and were in a daze. Then he came to his senses. Previously he was able to fend off the mosquitoes easily and treat them like human targets. That was because the stupid mosquitoes only knew how to attack Yu Ting. Now, besides himself, everyone was sprayed with the mosquito repellent. Without a target to attack, they could only attack him. Just as he was thinking about this, A loud buzzing sound rang in his ears. Dozens of big guys in the distance suddenly turned around and pounced in his direction. Even the 10 big guys around him became even more frenzied. Now that things had come to this, he had no choice but to be afraid. He couldn't let the mosquito repellent guy spray him again. If the giant mosquitoes attacked normal players again, he wouldn't be able to save them even if he wanted to. Forget it, just leave it at that. Take care of yourselves. I'm heading to the corner. After that, Qin Guang turned around and ran towards the corner of the wall. The buzzing sounds behind him became louder. All the large mosquitoes were charging at him. Chapter 1178. The giant golden mosquitoes were faster than him. As he ran, he also had to use the 18 palm strikes to chase away nearly 10 giant golden mosquitoes that were chasing at the very front. Fortunately, his moves and the giant mosquitoes' attributes countered each other. Although he couldn't slap them to death, he could still easily send them flying. After a while, he successfully rushed to the bottom of the wall. When he looked back, dozens of big fellows were still chasing him. The needles were even shining with a dazzling cold light. It was a very frightening sight. Bite him to death. Sting him to death. Suck him dry. Suck this lowly slave dry. Eat this bald head. Qin Guang's ears twitched. He had a dumbfounded look on his face. Thank you, Holy Grail, for being so considerate. When the mission segment changed, you actually prepared such a unique setting for me. Even the Mosaic NPC audience's lines were changed. I really shouldn't have complained about the poor quality of the Mosaic NPC. Your special care really touched me. While he was letting his imagination run wild, the ink-black energy that he shot out suddenly turned into even finer and thicker pinky fingers. These energies seemed to be strange. After he shot them out, they did not quickly dissipate. Instead, they condensed and floated in the air. They did not look like inner energy but more like flying catkins floating in the air. He finally reached the third move of the 18 palm strikes. This move was called Seeing the Mosquitoes in the Field. He couldn't tell anyone. He really couldn't tell anyone. Before the giant mosquitoes rushed to his side, he actually used this strange palm strike to set up a strange big net that floated in front of him. Of course, if one looked closely, they would also see that the big net was still constantly dissipating. It was just that the speed at which it dissipated was not as fast as the speed at which Qin Guang replenished it with new palms. That was why it seemed to be getting thicker and thicker. A few giant golden mosquitoes rushed to the front and fiercely plunged into the big net formed by the catkins. They madly rushed in. Shockingly sharp needles pierced into Qin Guang's bald face as if they were being stabbed into something. As Qin Guang slowly retreated to the corner of the wall step by step, he continued to strike with his palms methodically, piling up the flying catkins in front of him more and more. Only when the needles of the giant golden mosquitoes were too close would he deliberately move his hand over and use his fingernails to fiercely flick them back. Behind the giant golden mosquito, other mosquitoes of different colors were also charging in with the flying catkins. As time passed, the flying wadding in front of Qin Guang became thicker and thicker. The giant golden mosquitoes that were charging at the innermost layer were slowly pushed out by the thick wadding. The other giant mosquitoes were even worse, unable to move an inch forward. He blocked it. Qin Guang wiped the sweat from his forehead and continued to pat the cotton wool outside. After the cotton wool was thickened to a certain level, the speed at which it spread and the speed at which he added it formed a subtle balance. It was as though there were a few sheets of thick cotton nets in front of him, helping him to block the giant mosquito formation outside. Looking at his work, Qin Guang sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he was strong and knew many unique skills. The third form of the 18 palms was suitable for this situation. Otherwise, he would have failed miserably. What is Mr. Dang doing? Is his awakening ability to turn himself into a cocoon? It looks fun. The magical archer looked at the scene from afar and said, "Don't joke. It's not time to relax yet. We have to think of a way to help him," Peasant said with a frown. He couldn't relax and said with a frown, "Don't joke around." The Sonda coach disagreed. "If you want to go, you can go. I'm not going. These mosquitoes are so scary. What can we do if we go up? Won't we only create trouble for him? What if we attract the mosquitoes' firepower? Didn't Mr. Dang say that we just have to take care of ourselves?" "That's right. We can't harm these mosquitoes. What we should do is cheer for Mr. Dang." Another member of the mixed martial arts coaching team said calmly. Peasant looked at the selfish members and said slowly, "Have you thought about it? Mr. Dang seems to have stabilized the situation, but the mosquito repellent can only last for half an hour. We only have 2 bottles. If we want to protect the Protoss, the mosquito repellent can only buy us an hour. If we give up on the Protoss, we can live for another 2 hours, but we'll have to face the next form of the golden mosquitoes. What should we do? The hale and hearty elder said, there's another worse possibility. We don't know what Mr. Dang's ability is and how long he can last. If Mr. Dang is defeated, what should we do? Or if he can't kill the mosquitoes after an hour and can only protect himself, we'll still die, the young prodigy said weakly as he walked over. The genius high school student walked over with the help of the fat household appliance worker. His face turned even paler as he spoke weakly. What good ideas do you have? Hurry up and take it out. The Sonda coach urged them on. The young prodigy glanced at him and said, what I can do, I've been doing it since the beginning. I'm not like someone who only knows how to talk big but will only drop the ball at the crucial moment. What do you mean? The coach was infuriated by the young prodigy's indirect scolding. I don't mean anything. I just don't like you. Don't you understand? The young prodigy didn't care about his threat and retorted. All right. Stop talking. Regardless, we should send some mosquito killers to Mr. Dang, Peasant said as he gritted his teeth. Everyone nodded in agreement. It was a good idea. Everyone nodded in agreement. This was a good idea. Anyway, Fatty could still make household appliances. The coach asked, who's going? No one answered him. They were all people who said nice things, but when it came to a critical moment, not a single one of them could stand up. Peasant gritted his teeth and said, all of you, forget it, the 4 of us will go. Give us the mosquito killers. She was referring to the 4 members of her team. Forget it, let's go together. If we die, we die together. If we live together. None of us will be able to escape. The coach had thought things through. Peasant snorted and walked forward. Nobody noticed her solemn expression. Just now, in order to exchange for this hourglass, she had accepted a strange side mission. The mission description was as follows. Side mission. Accept a specific mission to obtain 100,000 reward points. Can be repaid in installments, interest-free. Mission description. Spend 1 reward point to exchange for an ultra-high-definition digital camera to record images of Dang Wu. Don't be discovered by Dang Wu. If discovered, the player will be reset. If the promise isn't fulfilled, the player will be reset. Mission special note. Time hourglass, level 2, can extend 1 second to 10 seconds. Each use will consume 10,000 reward points. Cooldown time, 24 hours. This side mission came at the right time. It was like giving her a pillow when she was sleepy. 10 seconds was enough for her to spray the mosquito repellent on everyone. The mission description was too strange and she couldn't understand it. Eventually she did it. It wasn't that Peasant harbored ill intentions towards Qin Guang. She had no choice. She didn't think taking photos of Qin Guang during the massacre mission would be harmful to Qin Guang. Would they be able to leave this place? Would they be able to retain their memories of this place after leaving this place? Also, would the things they took photos of be obtained by someone else? Everything was unknown. The most important thing was to think of a way to survive. She couldn't think of anything else. Subconsciously, she felt that Mr. Dang Wu was being targeted throughout the mission. He was too kind and too benevolent. That was why he had a bad attitude on the surface, but in reality he wanted to protect everyone. The last sentence of the side mission was, "Don't be discovered by Dang Wu." That was a blatant lie. "I'm sorry, Mr. Dang Wu. I didn't want to do this. Just taking a photo of your handsome face. It shouldn't be too much, right?" Peasant touched her eyelashes. She was convinced that the ultra-high-definition digital camera had to be so wretched. Could modern technology really do it? Using fake eyelashes to take photos of the camera? Did it have to be so high-end? With doubts, Peasant and the others carefully approached the cocoon created by Qin Guang. Then they put down the liquid mosquito killer and retreated far away. Peasant wasn't the only one complaining about Dang Wu's experience. Qin Guang was also complaining about himself. "Perhaps I've been tricked." Whether it was the normal gamers or the virtual gods, they were real gamers. They were enjoying the process of the massacre mission. As for me, I'm the plaything of the gamers. I'm their nanny. Are you trying to kill me? Forget it, I've already done this much, what else can I do? Do I have to finish the remaining 18 mosquito repellent palms within an hour? I still have to get rid of these damn mosquitoes, okay? Open. Qin Guang shouted and stuffed 20 blue capsules of Viagra into his mouth. The third form of the 18 mosquito-repellent palms was completed. With a loud bang, the cocoon that he had accumulated for a long time exploded. Tens of mosquitoes were blasted into the sky, buzzing loudly. Countless shards of wings fluttered in the air like glass shards, slowly floating in the air, looking like a gorgeous spring rain. Everyone was ecstatic. Mr. Dang's martial arts were unparalleled. In the end, Qin Guang couldn't hold back from shouting before he unleashed the 18 palms, just like how it was written in Hong Kong comics. He leaped into the air and shouted, "The fourth form of the 18 mosquito-repellent palms, flying mosquitoes in the sky." The gold fan in the MMA coaching team couldn't take it anymore. F***CK. Mr. Dang, what's the grudge between you and Mr. Jin? Why are you complaining about him at this time? Mr. Jin's coffin can't hold on anymore. The coach slapped the back of the lad's head and said, "He's still alive. What do you mean by the coffin can't hold on anymore? Yes, be careful that Mr. Jin's family comes to cover your coffin. It's a slip of the tongue. It's my fault, my fault." The lad apologized profusely. He was embarrassed too. Actually, no one knew that Qin Guang was having a headache at this moment. The name Flying Mosquitoes in the Sky was appropriate. You don't know that there's another move in the 18 mosquito-repellent palms. It's very reasonable. Chapter 1179. While he was flying in the air, the flying mosquito used both its hands and feet to attack the angel general. Both of his feet were frantically kicking the heads of the giant mosquitoes that were charging at him. Every time he touched them, he would release them immediately. He did not exert too much force, but only used the recoil force and the breathing method of the lightness technique to make his body float in the air. It was just like the cloud ladder used by the masters of the Wudong sect in the Wuxia TV series. When he was in the air, it was easier for the large mosquitoes to attack him. He couldn't use the wall behind him to surround himself with enemies. When Mr. used the flying mosquito in the sky, the situation didn't improve. The gamers couldn't help but complain. It's not as good as standing on the ground and fighting the large mosquitoes. At least they were evenly matched. Another gamer complained. Peasant stood up and said, "What do you know? Mr. Dang must have his own plans." Peasant's eyes were fixed on Qin Guang, who was moving around in the air like a butterfly among the mosquitoes. She initially wanted to blink her eyes out of boredom to distract the camera. But when she looked at Qin Guang, she couldn't even think of blinking her eyes. Her eyes were as wide as the bells hanging on a cow's neck. Zhuliang Tang. Qin Guang didn't know he was being secretly filmed. He was immersed in the flying mosquito in the sky. He heard the gamers' complaints, but he was too lazy to reply. What do you know? Looks bad, but everything is under the control of the old man. If you know how the mosquito resistance martial emperor came up with this technique, you will know how powerful it is. Back then, when the anti-mosquito martial emperor was besieged by hundreds of ferocious giant forest mosquitoes, he was chased to a dead end. He flew into the sky in a rage and battled with hundreds of powerful giant forest mosquitoes for an entire day. In the end, he killed all of them. In this long battle, the more the anti-mosquito martial emperor fought, the more he learned. At the beginning, he could only dodge left and right, but he gradually became more proficient. He could move around the hundreds of giant mosquitoes without changing his expression. Later on, he could even borrow the mosquito's strength to fight back, playing with the mosquitoes in his palms and feet. After that day, the mosquito resistance martial emperor spent 2 years to summarize his experience into the fourth technique, flying mosquito in the sky. At this time, Qin Guang seemed to be in a tight spot. It was the natural 0-1 opening attribute of this peerless technique. However, as long as he executed the technique, he would be able to understand the attributes of each mosquito. The more he fought, the more he would be able to use the mosquito's attacks to defeat the mosquitoes with fewer. Every move had the flavor of Tai Chi's 4 liang striking 1,000 jin. Flying mosquito in the sky was especially suitable for group battles. When used, he could always use the mosquitoes to restrain each other, giving him a chance to take a break and slowly recover his strength. Finally, after a period of time, he would accumulate enough strength to execute a big move, killing hundreds of giant forest mosquitoes. But today, Qin Guang didn't intend to completely copy the mosquito resistance martial emperor's technique. He didn't have that much time and he didn't have that many mosquitoes to face. He only intended to use the fastest speed possible to finish all his moves. He definitely wouldn't be able to kill these super strong giant forest mosquitoes that had crazily evolved to this level in the world of slaughter, but it didn't matter. He just had to continue with the next move. He stuffed a bunch of small pills into his mouth. Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, Qin Guang became extremely vigorous as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He kept dodging and moving in the air. Every moment he was in a dangerous situation, but he was like an acrobat walking on a tightrope. He didn't give these mosquitoes the slightest chance to touch him. Not only that, he became more and more ferocious as he fought. His hands danced like dragons and phoenixes, and his feet looked like they were tap dancing in the air. Dozens of giant forest mosquitoes pounced at him crazily, but they were always bounced back by him with all kinds of exquisite postures and angles, including the strongest golden forest mosquitoes. In addition, the power of his moves became more and more ferocious, and his aura became higher and higher. At the beginning it was light, but later, it became more and more violent like the waves of the Qiantang River. All the players were dumbfounded. Wouldn't Mr. Dang get tired? Even with the Viagra sustained release capsules, the fatigue wasn't just from physical exertion. Human muscle fibers were like machines that constantly contracted and released. There would always be mechanical fatigue, and there would be a need to add lubricant and lower the temperature. However, ever since entering the slaughtering world, Mr. Dang had only taken a short break in between each wave of magical beasts. Most of the time he was always at the forefront like a tireless fighting machine. This time it was the most obvious when dealing with the mosquitoes. He was lazy at the beginning, but after the mosquitoes started to gather and evolve, he didn't take a breather. Put the mosquito killer closer. Don't be afraid, the mosquito repellent is very effective. They won't turn around. In midair, Qin Guang felt that the momentum and emotions of the mosquitoes in the sky were almost ready. It was time for the final blow, so he shouted loudly. Peasant was about to lead his team forward when the hale and hearty elder walked out and said, "This time let's go." 30 seconds later, the hale and hearty elder and his 4 followers carefully moved the mosquito killer 10 meters forward. They formed a tighter circle, and the mosquito repellent in the air became denser. The others couldn't detect the changes in the mosquitoes, but Qin Guang was meticulous. His reaction and strength were weakened by at least 1 to 3%. The electric appliance Fat Man's mosquito killer looked like a joke, but the effect was outstanding. The mosquitoes were monsters that he couldn't kill. It was impressive that the mosquito repellent could weaken them slightly. Good. Qin Guang shouted in midair. He spun rapidly in the air like a spinning top. As he spun faster, it was difficult for the large mosquitoes to get close to him. They were repelled when they got close. After being repelled, the large mosquitoes seemed to be attracted by something. They flew towards Qin Guang actively and passively. A series of violent collisions happened in a flash. Towards the end, Qin Guang's emotions surged. His moves were no longer as shallow as before. Instead, he started clashing head-on without holding back. However, his entire body, especially his hands and feet, was densely covered with the core of the true martial divine art. Then, according to the secret inner strength technique of the anti-mosquito martial emperor, he circulated the protective energy. This protective qijin was different from the qijin he was used to. In the past, his protective qijin usually had a soft characteristic. It could deal with hard weapons, but at the same time, it had a good cushioning effect against blunt objects. However, the protective energy of the anti-mosquito martial emperor was extremely hard. It was like a layer of carapace covering his body. It wasn't only hard, but it was also slippery. It was like a diamond. When it was hard to the extreme, it would become invulnerable. When the mosquito's needles came in contact with it, they wouldn't be able to pierce through it. Instead, they would simply slide away. Using this unique qijin technique to deal with other martial artists was, of course, seeking one's own death. It was as if there was nothing and there was no buffering effect at all. However, it was perfect for dealing with mosquitoes. Although the needles of the large mosquitoes were extremely corrosive and penetrating, they were helpless against the hard and slippery anti-mosquito martial emperor's energy. The sound of explosions rang in the air. The large mosquitoes were blown to the side. The broken needles and broken wings fell like snowflakes in the air. Although the name of the flying mosquitoes was not very good, its power was really strong. Especially the fact that it became more and more courageous as it fought, it looked very cool. The ordinary players were excited. Master is invincible. If they weren't afraid of disturbing Qin Guang, they would have cheered for him like the NPC audience outside the arena. Qin Guang didn't care what others were thinking. He was busy counting the time in his heart. There wasn't much time left for him. He only had about 50 minutes at most. He had to speed up. Go to hell, mosquitoes. After he shouted in a low voice, he suddenly exploded the protective energy around his body. Pieces of glass-like energy shot out with a loud rumble, raining down on the giant mosquitoes around him like a torrential rain of pear blossoms, scattering them in all directions. However, the energy didn't hurt the audience not far away. After blowing away the large mosquitoes, they quickly dissipated in the air. The previous anti-mosquito martial emperor used this last explosion to kill the remaining dozens of large forest mosquitoes that surrounded him. If Qin Guang's opponents were also at the same level, his explosion would be enough to wipe out all his opponents. The players saw that Qin Guang was full of vigor and thought that he had achieved something. They all raised their arms and cheered. However, Qin Guang fell to the ground again. This time he resisted the urge to shout out the name of the move. It couldn't be helped as the name was too awkward. He didn't learn from old Jin's 18 subduing dragon palms. He didn't know why the anti-mosquito martial emperor suddenly thought of the name, Mosquito Master. After Qin Guang landed, he put his palms together and retreated a few steps. His back leaned against the wall of the bestial coliseum. At the same time he squatted in a horse stance and pushed his palms forward in a Tai Chi posture. This was a master. After a short rest, the mutated large mosquitoes in the sky recovered and swooped down like bombers. We fought so fiercely just now, but it was all bark and no bite. It's useless. The boxing instructor ridiculed. It's easy for you to say. Why don't you try standing there? Peasant said unhappily. The mixed martial arts coach shrugged. There's something I don't know if I should say. Mr. Dang said that he's a veteran player. In this killing mission he did perform a little better than us, but in my opinion he's still not strong enough. These mosquitoes are only the 5th wave. Even if we survive this wave, we won't be able to survive the next 4 waves. Don't forget that 9 is the limit of numbers. I'm sure the 9th wave isn't a small matter. Fireball Magician, who didn't like the boxing instructor, teased him. So? What are you trying to say? Should we retreat to the side and wait for death, or should we bravely charge forward and fight alongside Mr. Dang to squash these damned mosquitoes to death? I didn't mean that. The boxing instructor didn't have the courage to charge forward and die. Peasant asked, What do you mean? The mixed martial arts coach was being watched by everyone. I just feel that Mr. Dang is not as strong as he brags. We can't always rely on him. We have to find a way to become stronger ourselves. Besides, there must be something he knows that we don't know. He's hiding it from us. You're full of nonsense. Shut up. Are you addicted to being an official? It's not enough to be an official in real life. In the game you can't bear to see others stronger and better than you. You don't have any capabilities, but you want everyone to revolve around you? The genius high school student next to him said darkly. Among everyone present he was probably the first to see through the MMA coach. Enough, stop talking. Look at Mr. Dang's movements. The magic archer advised. At this moment, Qin Guang's fighting style had undergone a drastic change. His palms were gently stretched before him, but the giant mosquitoes still couldn't get close to him, even though they had recovered. Every time a giant mosquito got close to him he would slap it with his palm like lightning. What was strange was that after these mosquitoes fell into his hands, they would immediately become weak and unable to move. This scene reminded most of the Wuxia people present of a scam they often saw on TV. The legendary Tai Chi Kung Fu that could stop a sparrow from flying when it touched his hand? But that was actually to feed the sparrow medicine. Of course, what they saw on television was a lie. Gurus with real Kung Fu wouldn't go on television to swindle people. Those who could be seen were definitely liars. But what did Mr. Dang mean? Was it for show? It looked awesome, but what was the use of it? It wasn't like he could kill the mosquitoes, right? It was just a waste of time. Besides, he only had 2 hands, but there were dozens of mosquitoes. Could he handle it? While everyone was thinking this, Qin Guang flicked his wrist like lightning, and the mosquito in his palm shot out like lightning, crashing into another golden mosquito that was about to pounce. The 2 mosquitoes collided, bursting with a metallic luster and sparks, as if 2 planes had collided in midair and caused an air crash. Before everyone could recover from the impact, Qin Guang's left hand also shook violently, and he ejected the other mosquito. It was another collision of Mars and Earth. Before the sparks on one end were extinguished, the sparks on the other end lit up again. It was simply overwhelming. He actually used this palm sparrow technique with 2 hands to block the attacks of dozens of giant mosquitoes. My trick is amazing. How many years has he been single? Qin Guang could only say that it was hard to say how many years he had been single in real life, but if he was considered single in the world of cups, then he should have been single for at least 200,000 years. If hand speed was really proportional to the length of time he had been single, then his hand speed should be close to the speed of light. Collecting his thoughts, Qin Guang refocused all his attention on the giant mosquito array in front of him. He had only reached the 5th move, Mosquito Master. Time was getting tight and he couldn't take a breather. Thanks to the reward point store, the Red Bull had been upgraded to a small blue pill. At least he didn't have to drink water while fighting. It was just that it felt a little weird to have his mouth full of pills for a long time. If someone took drugs like him in real life, they would probably die 10 times. In addition, according to the current progress, if he didn't take a breather halfway through, he would probably be able to fight for the last move before the hour was up. As time passed, Qin Guang finally fought for the 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th moves. The others didn't understand his real intentions. They just thought that he was helplessly trying to find ways to deal with the giant mosquitoes, and everyone's confidence continued to decline. Qin Guang's moves changed again and again. It seemed that each move was more and more powerful than the last, but the actual effect reflected in the actual effect was always like a blooming flower, but there was no actual effect. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed and a new problem was placed in front of everyone. They definitely had to replenish the mosquito repellent on them, but what about the Protoss? Should they replenish the mosquito repellent, or should they use a knife, or should they completely ignore them? According to Mr. Dang, of course they had to save them. But now Mr. Dang couldn't care less about restricting everyone, and everyone could make their own decisions. From my point of view, the best solution is to kill the Protoss. Listen to me, there's no benefit in saving the Protoss. The boxing instructor could always pick the words that Qin Guang didn't like to hear. Peasant denied it decisively. Impossible. Previously, Mr. Dang had said that if the entire divine race were to die, then we would definitely die too. That's better than dying in half an hour. How do you know that Mr. Dang can't deal with the mosquitoes? Don't joke. It's been half an hour. Is the situation any better? Let's kill the Protoss first. At least we can stall for another 2 hours. If we do as you said, we'll only live for another hour. What's the difference? Qin Guang, who was a distance away, heard the quarrel and flew into a rage. Are you ignoring my words? I said that I can solve all the problems in an hour. Just listen to me. The boxing instructor, I'm warning you for the last time. If you're stubborn and want to die, I don't mind killing you personally. He couldn't take it anymore. This fellow's performance was acceptable at the start, but now he was like a rat that spoiled a pot of soup. He was restless and had all sorts of bad ideas. He even tried to undermine Dang's authority among the gamers. The purpose of a person like him was to destroy the situation that Dang had painstakingly created. He was a stumbling block for Dang to lead the gamers in this massacre mission. He was a black sheep and he was using up his benevolence. Everyone fell silent when they heard this. The boxing instructor said anxiously, Mr. Dang, what do you mean? I'm making this suggestion for the sake of everyone. I don't mean anything. I really just want to kill you. Everyone else, don't look at me with a panicked expression. No matter how you interpret it, my judgment is that killing this Sonda practitioner will increase everyone's chances of survival. This is good for everyone. It's good for everyone, Qin Guang said sinisterly as he dealt with the mosquitoes in front of him. Are you kidding? How can you do this? It's already suspicious that you want to save the Protoss. Now you're threatening to kill a human? You're too abnormal. You say that you're an old player, but the Protoss say that you're the big boss. Are you? Before he finished speaking, Qin Guang, who was originally wrapped in the giant mosquitoes, appeared in front of him like lightning. Are you trying to say that I'm the mastermind behind all this? Was he the most sinister one? Then you can further damage my image in everyone's hearts? Your calculations are not bad, but you miscalculated one thing, and that is the overwhelming difference in strength. So you can die now.